Yeah, I wanted to ask
little bit.
Destiny, his general view on this system is essentially let the market work, and essentially how it is right now, let it grow, and then build a big welfare state around that, which I think is something that works, especially if we're going to assume automation will be coming, and automation still will be producing, you know, wealth and value. So we need the mechanisms in place to make sure we're able to use that value in an effective way now. So
Biden, I feel like what we've seen here with Biden is the same thing we saw with Obama, right? Can't figure out how to fight, can't figure out how to place pressure onto senators or the congressmen, right? When it's a progressive issue, when it's something that's going to help the people, right? As the president, right? What he could do, he could go to West Virginia, he could go to these other states, all right, where we have these Democrats who've voted against the $15 an hour minimum wage, and he could let all their constituents know this is what your senator has done. This is what your elected representative has been doing, right? He could actually put out that support.
I don't think he agrees with the $15 minimum wage,
I don't
especially with how bad the economy is.
I don't agree with the 15-hour minimum wage, but regardless of whether I agree with it, I think Democrats, if they could pass it, they should, because it's amazing fucking optics. Even if it's a dog shit econ policy, people would like it enough that they would support it.
I worry about that, how that would affect small businesses with how bad this economy is and how much.
Regardless of that, Biden can't. Here, the reality is that you're holding on to a razor thin Senate. Okay, we've got 50 fucking votes in the Senate. The idea that we're going to expend political capital trying to dig into people that we are like barely have a majority on, that we're split even on, and we're relying on the vice president for a tiebreaker broke, that's just not happening. Do you want a 15-hour minimum wage? The time for that was in the election last year. That was it. We don't have enough in the Senate. We're not getting it. That's it.
No, I mean, hold on, no. Enough for the Senate. So
I think the biggest. Sorry.
We just have to have. So
against it.
Yeah, there were
like more than one. Two Democrats.
No, there was 8. I believe there was 8 Democrats.
There's 8 Democrats.
Really? Oh, okay. I'm not up to
The
date.
problem is the timing. The time. It's not the right timing to impose that.
Hold on. We would have to have 8 more senators, right? Beyond that, what we already have to make this happen, right? If Biden cannot get his caucus together, right, for these priorities, he said it was important to him. He said, "Oh yes, $15 an hour minimum wage." That's the one thing he threw to Bernie Sanders.
We're not just talking about a 15-hour minimum wage. If you want to fight for a 15-hour minimum wage, you can do that down the line. Right now, you're talking about holding up a $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief fund to try to get 15-hour minimum wage tacked on a really hacky budget consolidation measure. Like, this is not like the normal way that you would try to pass some major legislation like this. Number one, and then number two, even if you could, again, we're saying that there's 8 senators now. You need 8 more. Maybe you don't. Maybe you need 5 more, and you could get 3 to flip on it. Maybe you need like 4 more, and you get 4 to flip on it. But right now, when you're holding on to the Senate with barely 50 fucking Dems with the skin of their teeth in there is no fucking way that you're going to sneak a 15 an hour minimum wage, one of the largest minimum wage hikes in U.S. history, onto a bill like that where it doesn't even belong there. It's just never happening. Okay. There's no way this is ever happening.
First of all, I am so happy that you admit that senators can flip. You can actually apply pressure and you can get people to flip. Okay, so now that we established that, that's great. Now we can move forward. Beyond that, the reason why it was so important to put this into the bill is because it's a must-pass bill, right? It's something that can't be dropped, right? Biden's still not going to allow it to be dropped. His presidency relies on this passing. Okay, so if this was a priority, he'd have fought for it here. But okay, let's say you're right, Stephen, that it doesn't make sense to do it now, right? Like, don't hold it up. We need to get these checks out immediately. We don't have time for these games. Okay, great. Then what's his game plan? What's the next step for President Biden? We've heard that it's not going to be within this bill. Looks like that's not going to be the case.
So we have to work on bipartisan issues that are extremely popular across all of the United States. That's all we can do right now. Because if you wanted to do more, we needed more seats in the Senate. We don't have additional seats in the Senate, so we don't get to do that now. That's it. It's over. That's it. It's already lost.
Raising the minimum wage is a bipartisan issue. Like, you'll get support.
Raising the minimum wage to something like $12 an hour might be, or maybe $11. 15 an hour minimum wage hike is not a bipartisan agreement.
No,
like,
not
you
at
might
all.
be that's so fucking high. People and I understand that people are still lost on in coastal cities that they don't know that 15 an hour is just an unbelievably fucking high wage. But you do not have bipartisan support across the entire country for a 15 an hour minimum wage.
Yeah, you're completely right. Like, West Virginia's economy. If you look at West Virginia, Joe Manchin, if he isn't Joe Manchin, Democrats don't have a seat in West Virginia whatsoever. West Virginia is Republican. Joe Manchin being such a blue dog Democrat that all of us here are very disappointed with, that's the only reason we even have a chance in the Senate to get any change done for people right now.
Okay, so I love this. Basically, you're saying, all right, well, why don't we make Manchin the president? Because at this point, right, well, we have such a thin majority, right, and we can't certainly put pressure on them, right? Well, Joe Manchin wants, Joe Manchin gets. At that point, why do we even first of all?
Okay, so let me explain what the frustration is. Okay,
Right.
You're really upset that we live in a democracy. That's what this comes down to. You're really fucking mad that you can't just take your agenda and that is exactly what no. Hold on, because progressives need to understand this, and they don't for whatever reason. Okay, what the progressives are very mad about right now is that they live in a democratic system. What they really want to do is they want to find some way to take authoritarian control of the government. So whether that means expanding the fucking Supreme Court, or whether that means finding some way to overrule some bullshit in parliamentarian, or find some way to get the CBO to rule something, or find some way to blah, blah, blah. Like, everybody wants to try to do something that they just don't have the Democratic support to do.
So
if you wanted an ambitious agenda, you need more than 50 senators in the Senate.
First of all,
this happened first.
Making the Senate more democratic.
I promise I'll let you all in. I promise I'll let you on. I promise. I will let you all in because I want to hear what you all have to say on this. I promise. I just gotta yell at Steven here for a little bit because he's fucking wrong. First of all, putting words and intentions in my mouth that I did not state, right? So yes, we want to take over. No, all I said is that Biden is dropping his campaign promises. That's all I did, right? I didn't say anything.
Biden's campaign promise wasn't, I am going to sneak in 15 an hour minimum wage into a coronavirus relief bill.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that, one, that he would absolutely succeed. Even if he did everything that I want him to do, that he would succeed. I didn't say anything about that, right? I didn't say that he has the power to do this alone, because he doesn't have the power to do this alone. We have separated powers in this country. Great. So I didn't say any of that, and I didn't imply that I wanted that. That like I wanted to just simply push my progressive agenda on everyone else, right? Okay. All I'm asking for, and all I'm saying is that I need to see him actually fighting for these things, because I don't see that at all. I don't see it at all.
Yeah, because you don't want to see any fight. What you want to see is some weird authoritarian shit where they just steamroll through Congress.
So that's a nice straw man. Perfect. Another straw man.
Okay, wait. So let's like super simply then. Let's just follow it out. Okay. You tell me what you think you can do, and I will tell you every reason why it's it's never going to work. Go ahead. Let's start from the very top. Go.
Okay, all right. We're putting pressure on these senators, right?
Okay, so you want to put pressure on somebody like Manchin. The last time a progressive ran in West Virginia to show that, progressives could actually win there, they got like 34% of the fucking vote. They got fucking obliterated.
I didn't ask that.
Sure. So number one. So
that's not what I asked for.
Okay, you said pressure on senators. So Manchin is out. You're not putting pressure on him.
Hold on. Nope. Hold on. You didn't even ask me what kind of pressure I'm talking about, right? So
it doesn't matter what kind of pressure. He knows that he's not losing that seat to another Democrat.
Well, if you're actually going to listen to me, right? So it's like throwing up these straw men one after another, right?
You can call him a straw man. Go ahead. All right, go ahead.
Okay, sure. You can actually put pressure on them, right? Just like
how?
Okay, literally, I'm trying to tell you.
Okay.
You can go to his state, right? You can let his constituents know. You can have a full court press, letting his constituents understand exactly what he did, all right? And let them be the judge of this, right?
They already are. They voted him in. He's a moderate Dem. They've already voted for him.
So is that how American democracy works?
Yes.
Yes.
So yes, that is how it works.
We vote them in, and then that's it, right? That's it. That's there's no
problem. Prime. What you think is what you think.
No. You're gonna keep.
I'm trying to tell you. No, you're delusional. What you think can happen is we can go to West Virginia and say, hey, listen, you Dems over here, you're the same as the Dems in AOC's district, right? Don't you guys really want all these super progressive policies? And you know what the people in West Virginia look at and go, you're fucking crazy. Manchin is our blue dog boy. We're not fucking going for some crazy progressive.
Kamala Harris literally go to his state?
Gentle audience members.
And pressured him that way?
That's exactly what she did. Gentle audience members. Notice how Destiny refuses to actually deal with the points that I'm putting up, right? And keeps giving me intentions, right? Putting intentions on me that I have not stated at all. Okay, try it again. Great. So as Dr. Vane conveniently pointed out, yes, this actually has been done before. This is a viable strategy. You can do this if you think if that specific issue is a priority. You don't do this on every issue, just in the things that you consider to be a priority, right? So, okay, as we understand in American democracy, participation doesn't just stop at the ballot box, right? It's not a one-time thing. If you simply go and vote, and then that's it, right? Well, then you're missing out on the rest, right? Because your elected representatives, they take actions, right? And they are susceptible to pressure because they want power. They want to keep their power. Certainly Joe fucking Manchin wants to keep his power, right? So if you could rally citizens, letting them know that he's taking this action, which is against your interests, especially West Virginia, such a poor state, right? That so many workers would be in support of, let them know, then they could actually, look, they can call his office, right? They can send letters. They can do all these things, right? Put pressure on their senator for this. But that's not the only thing that can be done, because that's the stick. There's also the carrot, right? You can offer Joe Manchin something, right? Like, this can either go with me going into your state and doing everything that I just said, or going into your state with you, arm in arm, in front of a factory, right? Like, look at this factory. Joe Manchin came into my office, and oh boy, he demanded that this factory go up for the good people of West Virginia. And here it is. I said, okay, Joe Manchin, like, I hear you, buddy. I'm going to make this happen. And so Biden and Joe Manchin standing in front of some sort of project that benefits the people of that state. That can happen. That's how business gets done in Washington, right? I want something, you want something, let's make a deal. I'm not seeing that happen right now. You get,
I mean, like, I like everything you said is like really cool, but it's just like, I'm sorry, but like, you're not going, pressure exists on a political level when somebody thinks they're going to lose a seat. That's where pressure comes from. Manchin is not getting fucking primaried by a more progressive Dem. If Manchin loses his seat, he's going to lose it to a Republican. So Manchin knows, because he's not an idiot, and Biden knows because he's not an idiot, then people aren't about to fucking bully Manchin out of his seat, because we would rather have a 50th Dem that is incredibly moderate or blue dog in that seat than having a 51st Republican.
It literally doesn't have to be. It literally doesn't have to be a person who's more progressive. Like, that's like not even. It can be another establishment, because first of all, other establishment Democrats voted for the $15 hour minimum wage, and they're not all progressive, right? We can understand that all the people who voted for that aren't all progressive. So it doesn't take a progressive to realize that $15 an hour minimum wage is something that's helpful. It's something that people want, right?
Prime,
so,
he's
Once we understand that, we can know that literally anyone else can primary him. Like, if that's what you're talking about, yes, anyone else can primary him. But again, there's sticks and there's carrots. You can offer him something. It doesn't have to be like us threatening your seat. It's another option. There are many tools within the tool bag as a president that you can use for this very moment. But I'm going to let other people in right now. But go ahead. So those of you want to jump in.
He's been in office for less than 2 months, and you're already trying it. Like, you already expect for him to deliver on one of his biggest campaign promises.
I didn't say that.
Like, I think the thing is, like, Manchin, you know, like, I'm reading articles like directly relating to the Kamala Harris and Manchin relationship, and it's tenuous at best of whether or not they'll fucking like be in line on fucking anything. And like the premise that's being proposed to you, like, while you can push your voters and maybe like using your voters to peer pressure you to change your policies may work, but at the same time, it ultimately still goes into like Destiny's point of the voters are still voting for him. And now, like, even if hypothetically in that scenario where you do have a candidate where they happen to do like the 50 minimum wage, but would that not be indicative that there's probably some other policy that we ultimately otherwise disagree with as well that we're going to want to push next? Like, for example, like we'll get the blue dog Dem that's for the $50 minimum wage, but then oh shit, they're against healthcare, so now we got to wait fucking 6 years to get the other guy in now.
Dude,
and that's a far longer process.
Dude, are you serious? Right now?
Kind of, yeah.
No, like, seriously, like, that's the point is, right? Like Stephen mentioned, right? The point is to actually put pressure on them, right? So like what the other guy may or may not do is not actually important, right? It's just that are you in? Do you think that you could lose your seat? Right, so someone else can primary him. So it's whatever, right? I'm not like, it's not we're waiting for this other person, right? The point is to put up a credible threat against Joe Manchin and his power. That's the point, right? So no, we're not like imagining what the next person will do, right? Hopefully, someone would. I would love for someone to fucking primary this guy, right? But again, it doesn't literally have to be someone who is a raging progressive like I would love, right? It doesn't have to be that person. It just has to threaten his seat. He doesn't give a shit who replaces him. He doesn't give a shit about any of that. He wants.
Wait, can I ask you one quick, easy question?
Okay.
If he thought that 15 an hour minimum wage was important to his constituents, why wouldn't he just support it?
Oh, because first of all, Joe Manchin has a business there in West Virginia, right? Where he's paying his workers, I believe, as I understand, 10 cents over the minimum wage himself, right? So this would actually directly affect his own pocket. That would like raising the wage directly.
He doesn't personally have the business. Just to be clear, I mean, you're basically right, but like he doesn't own the business personally. It's like he has ties to, I think, a couple of businesses.
So he's invested in those businesses, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Just if you have
it's
any
a conflict of interest.
So yes, so he's invested in those businesses. So he himself would be losing money if that was the case, right? If more money went to labor costs. So he has a vested interest in not changing things right there. And beyond that, money in politics, which I haven't forgotten. We're going to have that fight later on. But money in politics, yes. His donors, I'm guessing, weren't going to be too excited about this either. We can look up who his donors are. But I'm sure if we go down the list, I'm not sure they'd be super excited. I'm raising their labor costs either.
But West Virginia in general, I'm from a small coal town. That entire state is decimated coal towns. A $15 minimum wage would economically be devastating for these people, and they are allergic to that policy. So that line of thinking wouldn't exactly work there.
No, actually, we had, pulling. Sorry.
I mean, I want to go back to something you said earlier. You said something about like pressuring for important things. We had like the Votorama today. We had a 10-hour delay on that because we were trying to get Democrats to be on the same page, right? That's like something that happened today. So we're trying to push for important issues in this COVID bill. Again, this $2 trillion COVID bill. Attaching the $15 minimum wage is not going to happen. That's just like not going to happen in this COVID bill. So, we spent 10 hours today trying to get unemployment insurance, right? UI stuff to be across these 8 Democrats. We're not getting $15 minimum wage. That's just not happening.
You know what would have been a good move if they had instead pushed for like checks monthly, either retroactively or happening like now till the end of the pandemic. Like give us something that is secure.
They did do a retroactive. I think they retroactively gave taxes on.
Get it? They literally cut how many people can get it. So the idea that they would be
giving more. Wait, I thought didn't they retroactively forgive taxes on prior unemployment disbursements through 2020?
No, it's gonna be the unemployment for this year up to $10,000 will be like not taxed for this year. So the UI going out for after this bill is the part that won't be taxed.
My understanding was that they made it retroactive through 2020. That I think it was up to $10,000 and unemployment insurance benefits would be non-taxable.
Maybe,
but now here's my question then: how many people who are in a financially like dire situation even know how to like implement those taxes? Like those.
Well, you don't have to implement it. You're not going to owe them at the end of the year. You don't have to pay taxes on it. You don't have to implement it. You just do your taxes or pay somebody to do taxes or whatever.
H&R block. Sponsor me, H&R.
TurboTax. Do TurboTax.
Not the way I'm here fucking paying $1,000 back to the government.
Prime, why do you think that Manchin would want to save some employees and some businesses that he's invested in instead of like winning his seat again? You think that's more important to him?
Sorry, save some employees. What do
so
you
you're
mean?
saying that like he's gonna. So we're full on the conspiracy train now. So you're saying that he's invested in some businesses that hire some employees that are working at below what the new minimum wage would be, and you're saying that he's willing to throw all of his constituents under the bus and risk his election because of his investment ties to these businesses. This guy's worth like $7 million.
First of all, so I'm thinking. I know watching the behavior of our politicians in general that when it comes to own personal interests, that is first and foremost. So when it comes to maintaining their power, that is the most important thing. How do they maintain their power? Well, we have these amazing, wonderful donors who fill our campaign.
Hold on, wait. When we say maintain their power, that's a good thing. We want politicians to maintain their political power. That's the whole point of it.
No. By maintain their power. Sorry, I mean maintain their seats. Sorry, that's
what we want them to do. That's what politicians should be doing. Yes, absolutely. That is literally
if they're not
fundamentally disagree with that.
You're fundamentally wrong.
Can I add something?
Kind of a democracy.
If they're not actually completing the work of the people, then no, I don't want them there. No, simply them being there, something like fucking Nancy Pelosi or whatever the fuck, right? Being there for years on end, right? If they're
one of the most effective leaders that we have in the House.
True. If they're actually okay. So
the Senate majority matters, though. So
let's not get distracted by that. That's a completely different conversation. Sorry. But like, my point is, I'll go to you. I go to you next, Stardust. I will go to you next. the point is not simply for them to be there, to exist. No, the point of them is actually accomplish the goal of people, to represent the constituencies to the best of their ability. If they're not doing that, they can fuck off. I don't need them there. You don't need them there. But we can get back into this. Stardust.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something that might kind of play into why he didn't vote for this. Is it says about 50% of West Virginia employees are employed by small businesses. So I imagine that a $15 minimum wage hike would negatively affect that group of people. I mean, it's just speculation, obviously, but
it would.
That's just what
an $11 minimum wage is much more popular, and that's what Manchin wants. He wants an $11 minimum wage increase, much more popular. I think it's 15 points more popular in West Virginia, and among every Democratic voter and Republican voter. So that is the policy right now.
That's the non-virtue signal position.
So the average worker, or at least 50% of the average workers in West Virginia, would be negatively affected by the $15 minimum wage hike. So of course he wouldn't vote for it.
Actually, so first of all, the 50%. So 50%. First of all, you're just assuming that would you would lose all jobs there. We've seen hikes.
I'm not saying I didn't say anything about losing jobs.
Well, you said negatively affected. What do you mean by negatively affected?
They would get less hours, things like that. It's a mixture of things, right?
Okay, so we've seen hikes in the minimum wage, right, in other states, right? And we've seen like even localities like next to each other across the border, right? We've seen the results of these things. I'll have to pull this up, but we've seen studies. Do they take
into account small businesses?
Yes, all businesses. Yes,
Okay.
looking at all businesses, right, and seeing that there isn't this massive loss of jobs that's always used to scare people.
Okay, this is not just real quick on this. This is brought up so many times. Okay, people always try to say that like, oh, this is brought. Minimum wage has been increased over and over and over again, and it hasn't increased. That's very true, and it hasn't led to a massive amount of unemployment. That is very true. But the minimum wage hike that we're talking about right now is way fucking higher. And if you read the next sentence on every economist that will ever tell you like, oh yeah, minimum wage doesn't seem to increase unemployment, the next sentence will always be, that's probably because the minimum wage is set to what the natural price flow would regularly be for wages. That's always the next sentence.
Is that what it is? I'm not exactly sure that it is.
But what does like naturally mean?
Yeah,
naturally, as in if market forces were left on their own, they'd probably settle at pretty close to what the minimum wage is.
I would love to see proof of that.
Right now, you can go if you want.
Can you link the studies you were talking about, Prime?
Right now, if you want, just Google like IGM 15 an hour minimum wage and see what like most economists think about it. It's probably super mixed opinions. Like that, it's probably gonna be split down the middle, whether people think it's good or bad. And look at the Seattle 15 an hour minimum wage, right?
So we can admit that. There's mixed opinion on that. Okay, so we've gotten that far. Great, we're making progress here. But beyond that, beyond that, no, I fucking forgot my point. It'll come back to me. Sorry.
Look,
go ahead, Dr. Vane.
So if we want to talk about like progressive labor policy, like we need to be talking about like Biden's a union guy, right? He's supporting the Amazon thing. We should be leaning on him on that. We should be like, hey, you like the Amazon union? Let's do it. We got comrades up in Seattle who are taxing Amazon. We got comrades over here in Burbank who are about to start taxing Amazon. Like New York is already like, there's this kind of stuff happening. We can push in those areas.
Exactly.
Like if West Virginia wants to do West Virginia, this is a great opportunity for us to have the 4 years to criticize the liberal project and to shit on Joe Manchin and then primary the fuck out of him. Beat him if we can do so. But now here's my next question. How many of y'all are going to show up to Phone Bank? How many of y'all are going to show up to actually do the work? Because that's the issue, is that like it sucks because Democrats are shit. But at the same time, they're not the GOP who actually wants to completely disenfranchise us, or at least people like me, right?
Unpopular opinion. So like Joe Manchin, he is sort of a necessity for West Virginia. Those demographics I don't think are changing soon. But if you want to look at races, we can flip. Delaware is a very progressive state that has really, really, really conservative Democrats, which are basically only there because they've been there for a long time. Those are seats we can realistically attack. And I love the idea of focusing on labor, real political power. Like that's what we should be pounding in right now. We can't do much. It's already set. The government's set right now. We're going to push for as much change we can to help people right now. Like my political model is, push for the idea deal and work pragmatically on our way there. And that's what we got to do.
We need to understand, at least from my perspective, real quick. I see we have 4 years to prevent a repeat of 100 years ago, right? Like we're in Weimar Republic times. So it's
2
like
years.
we're real close.
100%.
We're real close. So I'm getting my passport ready because I might need a dip. But at the same time, like we have a window of opportunity to, like we were talking about domestic terrorism. We can de-radicalize. There was a lot of that actually happening under Obama, where he was like actively, there was a task force that as soon as Trump got in, he immediately disbanded it, which was entirely for the purpose of de-radicalizing people, getting them exposure to brown people, getting them to understand that we're not scary, right? And then on top of it, like we could be having a better conversation about like what is actually happening at the border and what is actually happening with our foreign policy, because we need for people to make the connection that the reason for why we have the status quo standard of living here in the United States is because we run an empire in Latin America, and those people are suffering from it, and they're coming here because this is where the money we extracted is. That it's their money that we stole. So that's why they're obviously going to come here. As a result, we need to be educating people. We need to stop like shitting on them kind of, but they deserve to be shit on like when they're like extreme Nazis. But you know, you get what I mean.
So real quick,
we can do better.
To the Destiny's point from before. So I linked to Young Turk's article that basically talked about Joe Manchin and his ties to La Quinta. And basically there was an analysis that was done that basically says pretty much all of the employees that work for that company are already making around $11 an hour. So basically if you do the math, a support for an $11 an hour minimum wage would basically mean nothing to him. So that's basically what we're talking about. Well, that's basically making the floor, right? So nobody can make less than that. So it basically is just saying you're not going to be able to fall below that. Granted, you're probably going to have an inflation of wages at some point over time. But again, this is essentially the norm for him. So that's probably a large reason why he's okay with it.
So, I guess with that, like, if you sit like with the case of like $11 an hour minimum wage, like, and he has a company or he owns stock in a company, whatever the whole situation there is, like, if they raise the minimum wage to $11 an hour and he has those people working for $11 an hour, they're gonna have to raise the wage on those people too, because if they're working a certain job and then it's harder than another job that's now like making that same amount, they're gonna have to, like, those people are gonna leave. Like that, and that's like, I guess, an argument against $15 an hour wage to some extent. But really, I guess the main thing I wanted to say was like, if we want to convince him to support this, like, we have options that I don't know if they were attempted, but like we could subsidize companies, like we could send money to West Virginia, like that could just be part of this bill, like to West Virginia. Like he could fight for that. Like he could like actually support things like that. We could extend the length of time for rural states to like actually get to this $15 an hour. We could change the formula. Like it doesn't have to be over 5 years, like for every single state. Like it doesn't have to be the same for everywhere. Like it can be like more of like an actual formula to get there. Or I mean, we could just straight up give exemptions to states. Like
Yeah, that makes sense. And
that
that's
could be
very
that
much
could be
what
actually
the
like information that we could
yeah.
glean. Like
Wait,
that could be
that
really interesting if like if we like exempted states that like if we had like Missouri, a rural state that doesn't have $15 an hour minimum wage. We had West Virginia, like we gave one of them that, like one of them actually accepted it, and then one of them didn't. I'm curious to see what that would do to the economies of both those states. Like it sucks that
well,
that's gonna like
that was
impact a lot of
very
people,
much
but like it's you know, if that's what those
Also,
senators
a point
want,
being missed,
then
a point
well,
being really missed is that the $15 minimum wage as proposed was going to be a gradual increase. So
Thank
just
you.
if like the
yeah,
11 like someone mentioned like $11 was really popular in West Virginia. If it would have passed, it would be $11 right now. Like it would have been $11 this year, and then it would have gone up to like 12 something next year. Like over 5 years, it would have gotten to $15. So this
That
whole
never
idea.
happened.
to
No,
your
no, no,
point,
no, no. This
Lurden,
is
like
the
with the
policy for to go to 15. The policy that the Democrats voted on in the Senate was the gradual increase to $15 over the course of 5 years. That
I
is
get
it.
there's a gradual increase, but what I'm saying
Yes.
is states rarely ever go above what the federal minimum wage is, unless they have a really good economy like say,
Right.
California.
Exactly.
Or
So this
something
whole
like
idea that like the proposal that the Democrats wanted in that bill was going to be economically devastating to all these states is just categorically wrong.
Oh, wait,
because
real quick, just on that quick fact check, 29 states have a higher minimum wage than the federal minimum. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Is it possible for us to shift away from wage as
Wait, so
the
21
marker
don't?
for income towards something closer to profit sharing and something closer towards worker actual ownership? Because wage is based on time, not upon the skill that you actually dedicate to the product, right? So
There's like no way that like form of economy would be like compatible with anything that is known to work at the moment, though.
That's a long term thing.
That's a very long term.
Like I'm into it, but that's not something that's realistic. Probably with even in my lifetime. Like it's.
If the talk right now is just like raising minimum wages in general,
for example,
you know, like
Amazon's
the viability of profit
Bernie
shares.
proposed a 40% worker representation on boards, on corporate boards, during his run in 2016.
Yeah, he did, but he got crushed on those types of ideas. So how are we going to implement it?
Just get it talking. Start
what do you
talking.
mean he got crushed?
Not
on
that
the
idea.
type of
Maybe his other ones,
Just
but not
start
that
talking
one. That's
about
pretty
it.
popular.
Because here's the thing, like you got to consider that we waste so much time. We're in a sandpit every time we talk about the minimum wage, because we're gonna have to have this talk in 2025. We're gonna have to have this talk again when we push it again, rather than actually doing the math and setting it to something that is actually like, I don't know, rate of productivity. Wasn't that like a better indicator from like 1960s?
Or what you do, or you just match it with inflation, like we do with the fucking military. Like literally, military increases are predicated on the inflation.
You're talking about things that make sense, though. That's not how democracy
That's how it would
works.
be with minimum wage. You just match it with whatever the inflation rate is with that year, or with that previous year. Because
if you're going to talk about what policies you want passed, you can't talk about what makes sense, as Clara said, or makes logical conclusions, because that's not how a democracy works in terms of our democracy and how our politicians are going to support or not.
Wait, hold on. Wait, hold on. I want to fight. I want to fight against this.
I
Wait, real
disagree
quick.
with this.
Our government is totally logical, and everything makes logical sense. The reason why it feels like everything is irrational is because you're trying to pass a minimum wage on a federal level, which makes absolutely no fucking sense. The logical way to pass minimum wage is state by state. That's the actual logical answer. Anybody that thinks that there's a one size fits all minimum wage, especially 15 an hour for every single state in the country, that California, New York, and Nebraska and Iowa can
have a federal minimum wage at all.
I don't think so. Nah, fuck the federal minimum wage. Get rid of it.
So have a $0 an hour minimum wage.
Yeah, let the states set their wages. 29 states already set it above the federal minimum. Just let the states.
If it means I get stronger
States
union,
don't even have a minimum wage at all.
give me the
It's really
union.
that popular.
My problem.
Give me the
is-
union.
Yeah, I think unionization would be great. And if we had a president that would fight for those things too, that would be great as well. But
we can push.
My problem is that if you have businesses paying people clearly starvation wages, right? People cannot work one job, right, and make enough for a living. That's a problem. Right? Should those businesses even be in business if they can't pay their workers enough for them, even in the era? Let's say we do like the variable minimum wage, which is some other people have been talking about, right? A variable minimum wage for each different state. That's okay, sure, right? But at the very least, people should be able to work one full-time job, and be able to have a certain standard of living. Do you agree with that? If you don't agree with that, then
I agree that anybody in the country that works a full-time job should be taken care of, but it's not the job of a company to that's not their social responsibility. You wouldn't expect them to do that.
Okay. Well, yes, we wouldn't expect them to do that. That's why we have a minimum wage. Great.
Yeah. So what happens when you make the minimum wage too high and it gets too far away from the value these laborers actually produce? They're just going to automate the shit or shut
first
down.
Of all, hold on. First of all, the value that Americans our productivity has been rising for decades, right? And our wages have not been keeping
our
pace,
productivity has been rising for decades because of what college-educated engineers are contributing to our economy, not because people at McDonald's and Burger King are getting better and better at clicking burgers. I'm sorry.
They suffer just as much.
That's fine. It's not. Stop. Hold on. Moralizing. Stop moralizing it. It's an economics problem.
Hold on. I'm not moralizing this. I'm not moralizing.
You are. We're not talking about.
Again, you're putting intentions into my.
No, you're talking about like they're suffering. You're moralizing it.
Let me finish my point, then you'll understand what I'm trying to say. But by what suffering I mean economically suffering. That's a thing that we use. That's a phrase, right? Economically suffering, because the floor is lower, because the floor doesn't increase. If you increase the floor of your wages, right, then the wages above will increase. I experienced this personally. When I was at some point, I had a job, right? The minimum wage increased within my state, right? And I had been making just above or just below that. And guess what? My wages got bumped because the floor came up, right? To retain me as a worker, my wages were bumped, and that happens all up and down the economy, right? Because
you can talk to just as many people that have the opposite experience, by the way. People that are working that have like gotten their wage up to like 13 an hour, and then their state passes like a minimum wage hike, and all of a sudden newcomers are making the exact same amount of money they are. Like, I mean, these stories go both ways.
Yeah,
like,
hold on, that's a shitty employer. But the very fact that the floor is raised means that other people will have the opportunity.
Okay, here's a super simple question. Could we do a 50-an-hour minimum wage? 50.
50? No one's asking for.
Why not? Why couldn't we?
No one's asking for $50.
Yeah, but why couldn't we do it?
Over what time period? Over what time period?
50-an-hour minimum wage over 5 years.
Yeah, great. This is
probably not.
Conservatives, right? Yeah, Shawman. No one's asking for a $50 an hour minimum wage, right? We're asking for a reasonable increase. That would
what is reasonable?
What I just said, $15 an hour minimum wage. That's what I'm saying.
Why is that reasonable? How do you decide that that's the number that's reasonable?
Because looking at how productivity has increased over the years, right, and seeing how our wages has lagged behind, $15 minimum wage would be a reasonable increase to match that productivity.
Productivity has not increased equally among all sectors. That is not true.
What is $15 an hour supposed to do for somebody living in Silicon Valley?
It's a moralized position.
Yeah, this doesn't make any sense.
Sorry, excuse me. Hold on. What does more money do for a person living in Silicon Valley who apparently can't who can't on their current wages afford their? Hold on. Holy shit! Don't interrupt me. You can stop that right now. Thanks. Thank you. So at this moment, you're telling me this person making whatever the minimum wage is in California, I don't know, but making that, if they were having trouble affording their place, if they're having trouble making ends meet, you're asking what would putting more money in their pockets do for them? Yes, that would ease their burden. Exactly, right? And maybe for some places, the wage needs to be higher. That's why we have state minimum wages, right? So you can raise it above that floor if that's what's necessary for your locality, right? But we can understand that there are certain states, right, southern states mostly, that won't raise this minimum wage no matter what. They get rid of, if we had a $0, we had no federal minimum wage, they get rid of their minimum wage, right? And like let the market take care of this. No, we can understand that there will be starvation wages if some states, some localities have the ability to do that.
You think if the federal government got rid of their minimum wage, all states would get rid of their minimum wage?
I didn't say all states. I literally didn't say all. I said some southern states, right? Some conservative states might get rid of their own minimum wage. That's a possibility too. Because if we saying that there should be no floor, so a federal floor, right? Then why should there be a state floor?
There should be a state floor because ideally there should be a city floor. That's the ideal. But state is probably the most local level you can get it to because that's just what makes sense. If you've lived in different parts of the country, you know that to be true.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, but then
that just makes sense isn't really an argument, though.
No,
okay, I'm sorry. Okay, hold on. No,
I brought up a point to me that I'd like to respond to.
Yeah, real quick. I'm sorry that I said that it should make sense. What I'm saying is the cost of living is obviously different in different areas. If I go to Omaha and I want to find a 1-bedroom fucking loft, I can find one for $500 or $600. Okay, yeah, you can find apartments for downtown. Okay, in the fucking old market for like $1,300-$1,400 a month, right? If I want to find the 1-bedroom that I'm in right here is $2,400 a month. Okay, obviously the wage requirement's not the same between here and fucking LA and over in Omaha or in Des Moines or in Chicago or right. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to respond to Prime's point earlier, which kind of just rolls off of what Destiny was saying. Yeah. So it just seems virtue signaling this idea that just passing $15 an hour is going to fix all the problems that we're trying to address. Right?
I didn't say that. Don't put those words in my mouth. Did I say that? Did it solve all problems? I didn't say that at all.
Also, can I say like that if it was to pass, that's literally the opposite of the definition of a virtue signal. Is like if you literally put something into law, that is not a virtue signal. Like you've actually done the virtue. Like,
but it's not getting put into law, and people advocate for it instead of doing something reasonable. So it is a virtue signal.
I just want to know for the record. I didn't toss him out. He dropped. He just dropped, but I didn't toss him out.
Destiny, but wouldn't you not be able to wouldn't at the very minimum, like as opposed to no minimum wage, couldn't you literally just copy pasta your argument for let's say even just bumfuck Wyoming and just have that at least be the federal minimum wage?
Yeah, we could. The SDRDSK person has had their hand up like the entire time. Go. This person should talk.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just had a question. So, were you being serious about like eliminating the federal minimum wage?
Sure, it's shit. There's no reason to have it.
Honestly,
so I guess for there are states that I guess don't have one. Is what I'm.
Yeah, there just for so people know, like clarification.
Yeah.
5 states don't have one at all on the books: Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Tennessee. 2 states, Georgia and Wyoming, have one that is lower than the federal minimum wage.
So I guess I would ask is like how would we make sure that people are still making livable wages in some of these states? Like, how would you propose that happens?
So we don't care about livable wages. It doesn't mean anything. We don't need somebody to make a living wage. What we need is we need to make sure that there's some bare level of like social factors that are met. So you should have access to healthcare. You should have access to a place to live. You should have access to food and clothing. Like these are the things that have to be met. The idea when you peg things on this like concept of like a living wage, what you're doing is you're like shouldering the burden of taking care of society on firms that might not have the incentive to pay that much for labor that's just quite frankly not worth that much. So then what happens is and this is why I asked Prime earlier over and over again, why don't we have a $50 an hour minimum wage? The reason is because the farther you move away from what the natural price level would be for some given labor, the farther you get away from that, the greater negative impact you're going to see in the economy, where people that are low-skill workers that only have some high school are going to fall greater and greater and greater into unemployment. That's what's going to happen the further you get away from it. Now, as of right now, our minimum wage has always been set to like about where it's pretty close to where we would like naturally have our wages at anyway, even if there was no minimum wage. But if that gets higher and higher and higher and higher, those people are going to get fucked.
So then what would be the proposal to like would it be to make housing more affordable, or what would you say that we shoulder too much of the burden on the wages that we make? So where would you shift that burden then? Tax
policy is so good. You can target people so perfectly with fucking taxes and make me rock fucking hard. Taxes are nice because we can go after exactly who needs exactly what type of compensation. The problem with minimum wage is like you have like a circuit board that you're trying to attach a fucking diode to, and you bring in a sledgehammer and you just try to like hammer it on. If you have a kid that's fresh out of college or not even out of college, I'm sorry. If you got a kid that's like working in high school because he wants to make a little bit of extra money, and you've got like a single mother with a family of 3, to try to set one wage policy for both of these people is just insane. The needs of these people are different. A kid in high school can fucking work and make $8 an hour. Like, fuck him. He's like, it's just extra play money for him. His wage requirements are way different than a mother that has to provide like food, clothing, and education for like 3 children.
So
that's why tax you can target those.
So what about like?
Okay, I'll let you go. Finish your point.
I'm sorry. I just have questions. So how would I guess tax policy fit into what you were saying about healthcare and things like that?
So like a really good example of well, for healthcare, we should have some form of like social healthcare. We have some form of like universal multi-payer or single payer system sometime. That's just like a given. Every single other country seems to figure that out, but the United States. And then for other things, I mean, like we've got like programs like the earned income tax credit. Somebody brought up the concept earlier of like negative income tax. You have like UBI, you have tax credits that are refundable for like number of dependents you have. Like there's a whole bunch of different ways through tax policies that we can like razor target the people that need money in society, rather than just saying like, oh, well, all of you guys now get 15 an hour. Like, good luck, figure it out. When that's just going to lead to increasing unemployment in the people that probably need that money the most.
Okay. Aren't taxes like incredibly unpopular
they're unpopular because people are stupid, but they're so good. Like look at our IRS. IRS is underfunded because both sides fucking hate it, and the IRS is like one of the few organizations. The more money you put in, the more money you get out. There is so much money out there right now that the IRS knows that is out there that they can't go after just because we don't have the fucking funding for them. I agree, taxes are unpopular, but that's just because Americans are fucking stupid.
So let's militarize the IRS, right? Like just give them tanks and stuff.
Not hell yes. Can you imagine? Hold on. Can you imagine? Who just said it? I love you. Let's take all the fucking militarization of the police. Let's give those fucking tanks to the IRS and have them roll into fucking rich neighborhoods and just.
I want the IRS to show up to my door. I want the IRS to show up to my door in a tank. I want them to come out. I want them to like demand.
Oh my gosh!
Tax
paratroopers parachuting into fucking gated rich communities, jacking that fucking overdue tax revenue.
I 100% agree with you on this point. Yes, we should empower the IRS. Absolutely. Let's do that. Because for every every dollar we put into the IRS is like a $1.20 or something along those lines.
Oh my
you get
goodness.
back. So I'm definitely in favor of empowering the IRS to go after these rich motherfuckers. Yes, let's harass them like we harass poor people. Love it. But I want to go back to your point, Stephen, on about the kids, right? Like, oh well, these 16-year-olds, yeah, they don't have the same
wage requirements,
concerns, right? Yeah, wage requirements. That's not necessarily the case. You don't know any particular person's situation, right? So there are
Stop. Please don't give me the story of, well, what about the 16-year-old person that's actually taking care of 50? There's always going to be outliers, of course. But broadly speaking, and I will put my fucking life on this. You can take 3 inches on my fucking dick if I'm lying, okay? Broadly speaking, a 16-year-old kid going to high school does not have the same wage requirements as a single parent taking care of 3 fucking children, okay?
Look.
I mean,
first of all, hold on. First of all, hold on. One second. Hold on. Look, I don't need to address your fetish here. We can do that later privately. DM me. My DMs are open. Okay. But first of all, no, we don't have to, first of all, compare them exactly to a person with 3 kids, right? That's not, oh, wow. Hold on 1 second, please. 1 second. Thank you. Huff Daddy, LOL. Thank you so much for gifting 20 hot tier 1 gifts up to this channel. That's so kind of you. Thank you for the support. That's really kind of you. I'm not sure if we've already talked before. No, we haven't. You've just joined like a second ago. And you're already gifting. That's awfully kind of you. Thank you so much. But back to what I was saying. No, we don't. First of all, I don't have to like defend the point that like a 16-year-old might have the exact same needs as a single mother supporting 3 kids. I don't have to defend that point. However, I'm saying that you don't know their situation, right? There are so many kids, right, within poor families, right, that do have to chip in, right, do have to help out, and aren't just using this, right, to buy video games or whatever the fuck, right? And their wages, right, if they are doing the same job, why should they not have the same work? They're putting with the same effort. The player is extracting the same amount of worth from them. So why would their
stop? Because hold on. Because first of all, don't give me the same effort, same work thing. Because if we were going to say that, then fucking minimum wage people, like the argument for a higher minimum wage is just completely out the window. If you're talking about just compensating people for like the value of their work or something, then now you're justifying like the gross difference in pays between like CEOs and like line level employees. If you want to talk about like the value of
I don't justify the gross.
Okay, well then okay, so then we're not talking. Okay, then we're not talking about. We don't want to compensate somebody in society for their direct value to society. Okay, that's a shitty idea. What we want is
I didn't say that. I said the labor.
You said that if 2 people are putting in the same type of labor, they should get the same type of compensation. Yes.
I'm saying, but you said to society. I didn't say that. I said to their job. If I am lifting, if I'm creating 15 widgets, right, and the other person's creating 15 widgets, we're providing the same value to the business, right? Why should our wages be different? Starting anyway. Why should our starting wages be different?
The wages can be the same, but the compensation from the government has to be different. That's what I'm saying.
Compensation from the government.
I have a question for Destiny.
What I'm saying is that, like, let's say there's a single mother, okay, or a single father, a single parent, and you've got like a high school kid. These people don't need the same compensation, right? Oh my God, you're making me want to video game myself, okay?
Please do. Look, you can't handle this.
Listen, no, Jesus Christ. On an aggregate, on average, a single parent with dependents has different wage requirements than somebody with no dependents, okay? That's working at a younger age. The wage requirement, the compensation more specifically needs to be different because the person with dependents has more people that's relying on them. So what I'm saying is that like the way that we would compensate these people, to try to say that the firm, the company, should pay them the same doesn't make sense. Well, we could target them with tax policy. If you have dependents... Yeah, of course, I agree. We do, and it works really well. Like
the company is benefiting from their labor. The company is benefiting from their labor, right? So the company should be the one to pay them. The
company is not going to pay people $15 an hour to flip burgers.
If we force them to do that, yes, they will.
No, they won't. They'll automate it. Walk into any fucking new fast food.
They're literally already automating things. The goal is to automate. Right now, on fucking Uber, right? The goal was to fucking automate their entire.
And what do you think happens? The higher the wages go, the higher the wages go, the quicker the automation
going to do that anyway. Capitalists would do that anyway. Why would capitalists want $7.25 an hour in labor costs, right? When they could have zero or close to zero? Because
you don't have close to zero. That's not true.
But I'm saying when you automate, I'm saying dropping your labor costs close to zero because you're automating it.
You're going to pay people to maintain the road.
I know. That's why I said close to zero. That's why I said close to zero.
Not close to zero. It's
holy shit, dude. Hold on. So we can understand that we replace a factory full of workers, right? Like we understand that during the automation of the car industry, right? People were losing jobs, right? And then labor costs were falling. We can understand. Yes, there are people who maintain the machines. Yes, that's absolutely the case, right? But we can understand that more people lost their jobs. We get that, right? That's how automation works. That you save costs, right?
Yes, but if you accelerate the increase of wages, then you make automation more incentivized.
Anyway, they will do that anyway. Capitalists, if capitalists can automate, they will automate.
Okay, if the argument is going to be they're going to do it anyway, let's just make the minimum wage 30 an hour and stop fucking around. I don't understand like this argument. You're going to do it anyway.
What do you think the rationale is for any minimum wage?
There is the rationale for the minimum wage is that we're too stupid to set tax policy correctly, so we're going to use a sledgehammer to try to get like the same wages paid to totally different types of workers.
Why do you think that there's this substantive benefit to the use of tax policy as opposed to wage policy? I mean, tax policy
allows us to allocate. Tax policy allows us to allocate the money exactly where it needs to go and exactly who it needs to go to, and the exact amounts that we want it to.
But the same arguments on the side of sort of the liberalization movement of economies are made with respect to tax policy, that tax policy necessarily distorts, that it creates deadweight loss in the same way that these kind of regulations do. So my question is, why you made reference to a natural wage before, that minimum wages prevent you from getting to the natural wage. Do you think absent a minimum wage, we'd have something approaching a quote natural wage? What is a natural wage?
Whatever your labor is being purchased for by whatever company you go to work for.
Well, I think the policy rationale of minimum wages has to do with the difference in bargaining position between actors. So actors that are highly sophisticated, like employers, are able to extract increasing amounts of rents from employees who aren't sophisticated and don't have bargaining leverage, and for whom employment is an inelastic good. And therefore, they're able to have a much lower wage than what is socially efficient. And that's the purpose of minimum wages.
I mean, it totally depends on the type of labor market that we're talking about. So if we look at for as much as I fucking hate him, if we look at Trump's labor market prior to the coronavirus, our unemployment was at like fucking 3.5%. It was unbelievably low. And you could drive around these cities where these wages were going up and up and up, and people could not find workers to fill their shops. It was fucking unbelievable. Like some of the squeezes that people were in. Now, I do agree with you that there are times where if you want to talk about like monopsony power, so like you can only get to one job, yeah, you're pretty fucked when it comes to bargaining. And I do agree with you that the bargaining power between labor and capital, depending on where you are, can be heavily distorted in favor of capital. Absolutely. This is a really good argument in favor of things like unions, which was being talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. But to come at it with a federal fucking minimum wage, with the biggest fucking bad boy fucking hammer that every fucking firm in the entire fucking country has to pay 15. That is like the sloppiest fucking sloppy Joe, like on all over the bun. You
is
can't
it
even
sloppy?
See the bread. It is so
is it sloppy.
It is so ineffective.
Is it sloppy when we have federal regulations over certain types of industries? I mean, we have federal regulations with respect to finance.
Absolutely
markets.
It is. You want a really great example of this? Really sloppy type of regulation? Look at intellectual property laws and look at how horrible they've been at keeping up with stuff on the internet and digital content, because we have like this huge one size fits all. We haven't modernized.
Okay, but imagine what our intellectual property rights would be if the substantive law were all decided by states. I mean, think about what it is to have intellectual property. These with the internet.
It's harder when we decide that state by state because there's so much commerce. Like that's legitimately right. Like interstate commerce, right? But when it comes to labor, that's a much more localized force. You're not allowed to sell your labor on a national market generally, right? Unless you're lucky. If you're an engineer, white collar worker, you are. But if you're like a lower class worker, if you work at McDonald's, you're not selling your labor on the national market. You're doing it like fucking down the street.
The world is changing. Then maybe more. I think there's other policy rationales for federally regulating certain industries and IP as opposed to labor on a federal level. But there are a lot of rationales for having one rule fits all. One of them is lack of transaction costs. Everyone knows what the rule is. Everyone's on notice. We don't have to argue about it. I think there are a lot of benefits to having one rule as opposed to many different principalities.
There are benefits, but if that rule is too broad and causes too many external harms, like for instance, increasing unemployment between low-skilled workers, like it has in Seattle, where their minimum wage was only like $3 different when they reached the 15 hour, like then you have to stop and wonder,
We know-
hold on, is the simplicity of this rule?
With respect, we know that minimum wages are going to decrease the labor force. If it didn't, I don't know what it would be doing. We accept it as a cost that when we have a minimum wage and we establish it, people are going to be priced out of hiring. And but we think that either there's gains to productivity somehow, and keep in mind for all these CBO reports, one of the assumptions is that there's not going to be a gain in growth. We think that there could be growth effects as a result of a minimum wage increase, and we think that it might divert other costs from the government.
Theoretically, if you could, though, how based would it be that you have two people working at like Burger King, and one is a high school kid and he's making $9.50 an hour, and then another is like a single parent, they're making $9.50 an hour, but like at the end of the day, the single parent is getting like twice as much on their paycheck because they're getting like tax kickbacks.
Well,
listen, and then the companies are
have wage in the first place. Honestly,
why would you ever hire the older person in that scenario?
They're making the same amount. I'm saying they're getting more in their paycheck because there's less tax withheld.
Well, why not charge them $0 an hour and then just like fix it on the back end through taxes then?
Because I don't think because they're still going to pay something, right?
Why?
Because you're going to have people that are participating in the labor market that don't require all those government.
I mean, if I'm working at Burger King and somebody else is doing the same job, we're both getting paid the same amount, but then my taxes are like giving me double or whatever the fuck. Like, why not just pay us both $0 and then have the government do it through the back end and pay us that same amount?
Because some company then is going to start paying their workers $2 an hour, and you're going to go to get all of your taxes and then work for $2, and then some other company's going to pay you $3.
So we're deciding that we need to limit it at some point.
No, we don't. Eventually, like the market would settle on some wage where people are going to pay you what they think they can as a share of their labor costs, right?
But this is already being arbitrarily decided by the government, like what the person deserves. If we're like giving them
that's why I'm saying we decided on the tax end, right? On the tax end, we can make that decision. Like, hey, like if you're a single parent, you need to make this much money. Like, we're going to make sure that we shore up your wages. It's going to happen. Like, that's going to happen from the general fund.
You don't think this is an issue with distribution?
Sorry.
You think
I don't know.
You think that we have to solve this with distribution?
Hell yeah, redistribution.
I'm fine with that, but do you think that you acknowledge that the distribution is the issue that we're fixing here?
Yeah, of
with
course.
redistribution.
Yeah.
So, what are your solutions to addressing the distribution aspect?
There is no good solution that I've heard for addressing the distribution aspect.
So let's go to
okay, hold on. If I could for a real quick second.
There's no free lunch.
I have a study that I'd like to give y'all real quick. I don't know. We can look at it.
You want us to read it like a 15-person panel?
No. I'm just posting it for.
We all read one page.
But just because I was looking through this, and just because I want to be able to cite this, right? But essentially, it's just saying that like there has been a massive increase in the amount of like CEO pay versus like worker pay, right? Is that like increase of that pie going to the CEO not the issue that we should be addressing?
Well, what Destiny is suggesting is that these CEOs and executives are much more productive than other workers, and he would want to tax them at the back end. Yeah,
and that doesn't address his problem with the small businesses as well. But I also want to go. Ninetales has been waiting patiently.
Thank you. Yeah. I was hearing about the automation thing, and I noticed something that I wanted to call out, but it would have been I would have had to talk over somebody. I think Destiny's argument that automation is just going to take over and they're just going to use that in place of paying workers a minimum wage is a reason to do the $15 minimum wage sooner before a lot of this automation technology is available and reliable than later when it is available and reliable and it's easier for employers to do that. I also think that your overall analysis seems to be very flawed. I don't know if you're willing to criticize capitalism in this. So don't you see how, like, if workers did own the means of production, if not the actual businesses themselves, they'd be far more incentivized to value themselves and each other's families than a CEO would who just owns like the capital or whatever?
Sure. Super quick, easy question. And if the workers own the means of production, how do you start a new company?
Oh, public banking.
How does the public bank decide who gets to start a company?
What do you mean?
As in, let's say 1 million people.
Is there no such thing as a co-op?
We currently have a chamber of commerce that decides.
What is a co-op?
A co-op, is a formation of a business where everybody has equal ownership. That is an incredibly difficult time to start because getting access to capital is very difficult because you can't sell shares of your company. So that's
because of capitalism.
It's because you're banning outside ownership and outside investors.
Yes, thank you.
If you need to have a worker buy-in, then almost by definition, you're not allowing residual claimants from outside, and so you have to rely on your financing either by debt claims, right? A lot of corporations and a lot of people don't want to finance their venture with debt claims because it's highly risky, and people don't want to loan to this startup with just debt claims, so they'll sell residual claims or shares. And so there's problems with so Destiny's not worried about any particular subset of the economy. He's worried about everyone overall. And so you saying that, maybe in one system that there might be more labor benefit or benefit for the labor force in one system as opposed to another.
No, my criticism is that he's not willing to factor in capitalism into his analysis.
I'll factor in capitalism, but you have to give me a better alternative. And co-ops just have huge problems with initial capital. It's hard to start a new business. Like Dr. Vane over there was saying, well, what about banks? Well, so what? Does people have to vote on which businesses get to start in a society? Do you think everybody
if capital is the issue, then it's starting to sound like not capitalism is a solution.
We currently do that with the Chamber of Commerce.
Solutions are not, first of all, no, that's not true. Anybody can go and get an SBA loan if they want. You don't have to go to the Chamber of Commerce to get that approved.
What are you talking about, the Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, not the Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce is either way. That sounds like an answer to your own question.
No, how is it? What I'm asking is that so right now in my system, if I want to start a business, all I have to do is raise money and I can start a business. Okay. And in a co-op system, how does anybody decide who gets to start a business?
Do people not crowdfund things nowadays? Is that not possible?
I'm gonna video game myself.
Okay, really? So crowdfunding is out of the question because magically.
I think we're kind of getting lost.
He's just not responding. He's just avoiding.
Sure.
Hold on, I avoided the question because the idea that you would have to fucking welcome to society. Oh, do you want to start a business? Well, here's Indiegogo. Good luck raising.
Well, you're making it sound impossible when
it is impossible. You can't just crowdfund. How are you going to crowdfund every single business?
It's not impossible.
Okay, everyone, shut up. Hold on. Everyone, please, thank you. Stardust, I see your hand. But yeah, I see. I think we're getting lost now because the issue was $15 an hour minimum wage, right? And now we're getting lost in different business types. Now, I would love to increase the number of co-ops, and I think we could alter the rules of our system, of our banking system, for instance, to make this more feasible, so they get startup capital, or for instance, encourage them through government grants or loans or whatever. I think there are ways to do this, but we're getting lost in that sauce. I want to get back to this idea of $15 an hour minimum wage. Okay, and I'm going to take a quick moment to say thank you, Katarana, for gifting that 5 hot tier 1 gift subs, and Katarana for I think right now in terms of my PayPal donations, you're number 1 all the way for the month. Thank you, Katarana, for being so kind.
Those were tier 3s.
Those were tier 3s. She gave tier 3s?
Yes.
No. Holy shit, you gave tier 3s. Holy fuck. I did not notice that.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Katarana, thank you for those 5 hot tier 3 subs. What? I did not notice that. Thank you for letting me know. Holy crap, Katarana. Holy crap.
You're halfway to crowdfunding your business.
Yeah, almost there. Thank you for the 5 tier 3 subs, Katarana. Holy crap. I hope you saw that. Hopefully you just didn't leave the moment I said this. But anyway, okay. So we're
$50 minimum wage.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, $50 an hour minimum wage. Hold on. Let's go to Stardust and then Canadian.
Well, I was just gonna comment on the stuff from before, but I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I don't want to go back on that right now.
Yeah.
So let's Canadian. Are you going to talk about $15 an hour?
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to ask the room, how do you guys feel about tying the minimum wage to productivity increases? Because I'm looking at a Center for Economic and Policy Research paper that states that if we were to do that, 1, it would be much higher than 15, and 2, in the long run, that would solve this issue of always having to legislate what our minimum wage is in any given time period.
What is productivity?
Okay, can we real quick? Okay, do we know that all black people in this country are not the same, right? We know that there's different groups, right? We know that all brown people in this country are not the same, right? We know that all white people in this country are not the same. Whenever you look at something on such a huge aggregate, you totally miss everything. When people do these things where they talk about productivity and they say, well, the productivity of the American worker, wages haven't kept up. That's not actually true at all. What's happened is people have taken our productivity on an aggregate And then they said that like the aggregate wages haven't kept up. Productivity has massively spiked in certain industries and it hasn't spiked in others. Like productivity is increasing among like the white collar, like college educated engineering jobs. That's where the massive gains in productivity are. The idea that we would peg like a minimum wage and say that, well, productivity is growing everywhere, so it should keep up with all that. Like, do you want to peg a minimum wage on everybody on the aggregate productivity? Sorry.
Also, I think part of the appeal of a minimum wage is also having a bright line rule and not having to do a lot of calculations about any particular industry. And so I think a lot of those efficiency gains from having a minimum wage and having something just tell you what you have to pay with the threshold, you lose some of that when you have to have these like back end calculations tied to a particular industry.
So, a major part of the problem. Okay, so I was going to say, go real quick. Go ahead.
So from like a general perspective, right? Like, so increases in productivity are partially due to like automation and use of the machines. This applies to low-skilled labor as much as it does high-skilled labor. Like McDonald's spends millions of dollars per year making like their back rooms more efficient. So the average like amount of money that's produced per even the lowest skilled labor is incentivized to be higher. So I don't see that as that being that ridiculous, because even in those low skilled jobs, we do invent machines to make those jobs more productive and more economically beneficial to those industries.
But you're talking about things that happen basically on the back end. Because a corporation does well and makes more money, doesn't necessarily mean that basically the low skilled front end worker is basically doing more or is actually producing more, to Destiny's point. So say, for example, if you put the onus on the business to basically have to pay, say, $20 an hour or $15 an hour minimum wage, that increases the likelihood that they're just going to try and out efficient or basically make that front end process more and more efficient so that they can gain more money. This goes back to the whole problem to begin with, which is basically that we can't properly tax these corporations and people that make giant amounts of money, because you're saying the people at the bottom should basically have a bigger chunk of the share. I think everybody can agree with that. The point is that the approach is different, or is a wrong-headed approach.
I want to take issue with Destiny's panacea of tax policy. I think there's no such thing as a free lunch, and every expenditure or benefit that you're given to some sector of the economy is taken at expense of another part of the economy that's paying representatively a larger amount of taxes.
Take it from the fucking wealthy people; they can afford it. Fuck.
But it distorts things in just the same way, or maybe we can have differences of opinion about how it distorts and what magnitude. But it distorts things just as wage policy might. My problem is, why do you have this specific criticism of a federal minimum wage and not other types of federal regulations? It seems.
I mean, it would depend on the federal regulation. I think that any particular rule should be like as specific as is reasonably possible. I don't think you would disagree with that. Now, no. I agree that there's going to be like, we shouldn't have like, for instance, so for taxes, we shouldn't have an individual tax code for every single different U.S. citizen. But like taxes are something that we can do at a sufficiently like complex and sophisticated level per person. So like, why not? But I mean, there are going to be other things that need to be more broad when we talk about certain regulations. It just depends on what we're talking about. We would have to think of the particular thing.
So do you think that the country would be better off were we to abolish the federal minimum wage?
Only if it was replaced with like other types of like minimum social safety net programs.
Okay, so then my problem then is in a lot of your conversations, key, I feel, to your policy prescriptions is like kind of realism. Is understanding that policies don't exist in a vacuum, that they have to be implemented, and whether or not it's done in concert with other actors matters. And so are you confident that you can have this kind of decentralized push towards greater worker
Fuck no.
rights?
If we only got one, I said it on the beginning of this panel, I think Democrats passing 15-hour minimum wage is base as fuck for their platform. It would give them a ton of political popularity. But I think that there are other things that are more important to push for that not only are more pragmatically possible, but I think move us towards a better economic ideal. So for instance, if I'm going to see political capital spent in one area, god damn, it needs to be in fucking healthcare. That is something that has to, there's so much more agreement in the healthcare world than in this fucking minimum wage world. And for the healthcare shit, we don't even have to use our brains. Okay, we can go fucking full Stack Overflow mode where we just copy paste a solution from another country right into the United States. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit different in implementation, but this is something that every other country has figured out. Like, let's start there. And then once we have healthcare figured out, our conversations about minimum wage become so much less heated, because now it's not a conversation about whether or not somebody can afford their fucking chemotherapy or not. Now it's just like, okay, well, what don't we provide right now in society that the wages aren't taking?
I agree that minimum wages aren't going to be a huge boost of growth in this country and shouldn't be on the top of progressives list. But I also think you're being a little bit naive about the complexity and difficulty of passing healthcare regulation in this country. We've had numerous eras where we've tried to pass healthcare regulation and it's been defeated.
And we got the ACA. It was huge.
It took a huge amount of pushing, and we had to have the drug companies on board, the American Medical Association on board, all the insurers on board, everyone in concert. And even then, right?
It's been but there have been huge pushes like that. We've had women's suffrage, we had the Civil Rights Act, we have gay marriage. Like we had the ACA.
But it's a lot of political capital. So what you're saying is not it's not a trivial.
We got the crime bill and we lost Congress for it. We got the assault weapons ban was a big part of that. And Democrats paid a huge price for it. The ACA, we got that and we lost Congress for 6 years. Democrats paid a huge price for it. Like there's a lot of.
But you suggested that healthcare would be an easy compromise, and we could. It's an easier thing to go through.
I think that healthcare, because I think we're at that moment in U.S. history where the conversation now has moved to that, where you're getting like a lot of bipartisan support on things like not single payer, not the insane, stupid fucking shit that these Medicare for all lunatics push.
Insane to implement, insane to implement, but not insane.
Insane politically, like it's dead on arrival, dead before arrival. Clarify that, okay, this is like aborted out the fucking dick before it's even made a fucking embryo. Okay, that's how dead that shit is. But on successful multi-payer systems, okay, hold on, I'm telling you a lot. Ninetales has had her hand up for a while.
Hold on. Before that is Jula, who's had his hand up, so I'm going to go to Jula first.
I wanted to ask Destiny, his general view on this system is essentially let the market work, essentially how it is right now, let it grow, and then build a big welfare state around that, which I think is something that works, especially if we're going to assume automation will be coming, and automation still will be producing wealth and value. So we need the mechanisms in place to make sure we're able to use that value in an effective way now. So that is a much better long-term plan. It seems like the $15 minimum wage is yesterday's news when it comes to preparing our economy for the future.
Yeah, 100%. Markets are so good at doing what they do. Let them do what they do, and then we'll just take care of everybody else on the back end. Use tax policy for it. Don't fuck with the markets so much. Like people like rent control and crazy shit like that. Like let the markets do what they do.
Policy. Let them do what they do.
Like market socialism. Yeah. So yeah, I'm cool with this.
Oh man, yeah, definitely.
Market socialism, based.
But let's go to Ninetales, and then I think Captain A. Jones had his hands up, and maybe I'll jump back into this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I quickly read over a couple meta-analysis of the adverse effects of minimum wages in various places, not just the US. It seems like specific labor groups may be more vulnerable than others, particularly part-time employees and their ability to be retained. However, I'm hearing a line of logic that goes, we can't stop this sort of thing from being abused, or we can't stop certain workers from being hurt, so we just shouldn't do it. I think that the more that we get into like, well, okay, it's not all laborers that are going to be negative effectively, it's just very specific ones. The more we can regulate these things, and the less abstract it is to regulate that, part-time employees are part-time, I don't know. In this case, it would probably be like a contract or something that they get to sign. But in general, I think that protecting workers while giving them a higher minimum wage is better than not giving them a higher minimum wage and not protecting them.
Okay. Jones?
Yeah, so I mean, like, I think something that we're kind of missing here might be like might be like as leftists, because I think I do this too. Like, I want to live in an ideal world as well, where everyone can get paid a fair wage, no matter what they're working on. But like, I would totally settle for an $11 minimum wage right now rather than pushing for 15. I think that it was really overambitious of the Democrats to push for a $15 minimum wage in the relief bill. I think that's something they could have tried to do later, maybe. But like doing it in the relief bill, I think was just a really big overstep, because what we have to realize, like, I'm in San Francisco. I'm in a fucking bubble. I'm in a liberal utopian bubble. It's amazing. It's awesome. But the problem is there's people in the middle of the country, like where Joe Manchin is. And
it's not in the middle of the country.
I don't even know where the fuck he is. All right. He's just a senator. He's just a senator. But what I understand though is that he's basically like a blue dog Democrat. He has to cater to blue dog Democrats in his area, and it's a very conservative electorate. I mean, really, it just boils down to the electoral college is fucked up, and that might be what we want to aim our focus at, is getting rid of that.
Why are we talking about the rightness or wrongness of the policy? If this is all political posturing and sort of getting a right strategy that appeals to people in the right places, then let's say that. But having these discussions on the merits about whether or not minimum wage is good or not, I think
to be fair, that wasn't the original discussion.
Okay.
The original discussion was over whether or not Biden, I think, should have been pushing for it. So that's why we were discussing.
Well, I don't know what else Biden could do. I know people who are blaming Biden for
fucking
this.
True.
I don't know.
Hold on. I'm saying, okay. So Pisco.
Oh shit! Is that your position, Prime? I'm sorry.
Yes. No, it's fine. No, it's fine because you weren't here for it. But like I'm saying, Biden has the bully pulpit. He hasn't actually put any executive muscle behind this because I don't think this is actually a priority. He says it's a priority of his, but I've literally seen no proof of it whatsoever. And addressing, I can only address part of your point now, A. Jones, but I'll address the rest later. But in terms of attaching this amendment to this bill, right? Now, you can argue on strategy. That's the one thing. You can argue on strategy. Maybe this wasn't the best strategy. I'll argue against that because for something like this, it needs to be attached to a must-pass bill, right? Like doing this on a clean bill is going to be even a harder lift, even tougher lift to make happen. So if you actually want to get this done, I would attach it to a bill that must for instance, like if not this, then like the Defense Act, like the Defense Pay Act. I forget the name of that.
I don't know.
It's I'm blanking here, but you guys know what I'm talking about. The bill that pays for defense.
Yeah.
So defense appropriations bill. Sorry.
Yeah.
So like that's another option, right? But it has to be it's almost certainly needs to be on a must-pass bill. So like just the strategy of it
to avoid the filibuster. Is that what you're saying?
I think.
Yes, to avoid the filibuster would be one way of doing this, or just because like it's something that needs to go. So like if once the amendment is attached, right, unless it's somehow removed, then job's done.
Guys, you guys also can't be naive, all right? So all these people who are these senators and stuff, you think that they don't know that this is going to fail when they put it forth? In some ways, you could. I don't know that this is happening. I'm not in their ears, but you can imagine a world where Biden is giving people like Joe Manchin and Sinema an opportunity to vote something down, so that they have a better opportunity in their electoral races in the future. So don't be naive also about what it seems like the purpose of putting this forth might not actually be the purpose.
Yo, I'm Biden all the way. I'm Democrats all the way, baby.
I'm 100%. I 100% agree with you. I can see if I'm.
I think the welfare state idea is actually pretty compelling.
Why
Honestly,
do you think people voted it
the
down?
welfare state's a pretty solid thing that lasts for a long
If it was going
time.
to pass, they wouldn't have
Whether
voted
you're
for
employed
it.
or not,
They're doing
it's
it for
always
a reason.
there.
That's definitely a possibility as well. So like, yes, don't look at things from face value. 100% agree with you there. But also, there is utility even in the loss, right? Even here in the loss, because now you know who's against it, right? Possibly maybe other people would have voted it down. Who knows? But
Prime, but the implication is against you because it's going to help their electoral odds, and you think it's going to.
Progressives don't understand that because Prime is going to tell you that actually all of their constituents actually. Here's Prime's argument.
I didn't say that.
What Prime is going to say is, well, actually, their constituents super want that, but all of those politicians are super corrupt, and they all own businesses where they underpay their poor Hispanic illegal immigrant employees. They're dying with heroin needles out their arms that are being sold to them by these politicians.
Wow.
So they're never going to vote in favor of these minimum wages. That's the argument. Sorry. So nice try, Pisco. You almost got him there, Pisco, but he came back into it with the corrupt politician argument.
I'm so happy to experience once again the magic of your argument.
I got your back. I got your back, PrimeCayes. Don't worry, man.
Plenty of straw man ahoy. The straw man emporium. That's what you'll find at the Destiny's channel, twitch.tv/Destiny. Right. If you want your straw man, you need a straw man. Destiny can provide you. Don't worry. So I think one I know like from polling that it is actually popular, right? It's a popular position, right, to increase the minimum wage, right?
I'm for a higher minimum wage, but the welfare state seems like a great idea too.
That if outside groups are going to have a chance
that'll
to
be our
put any
focus.
pressure on them at all, right? You have to identify the people who've actually voted against it, right? So yes, sure, some people maybe it's impossible. It's a possibility that some of these senators can't be moved, right? But as Destiny admitted fucking a half hour, 90 minutes ago, some senators actually can be flipped, but first you have to identify them. Who is actually holding this up? Who is voting against this, right? Now that we have that, that's another step down the road of actually getting this thing passed later on, right? Okay. So
can I jump in?
Sure, you can jump in, and then but before that, actually, Gosh, thank you for joining us, and then we'll go to you, Strawberry.
It's been a while. It's Gash. It's okay. So I think there are a couple things that are being missed here. First of all, when we're talking about like whether or not there should be a minimum wage at all, no one is talking about like what a wage is actually for. People earn wages so that they can fucking survive, so that they can buy food and housing and stuff like that. It's crazy, right? So, and I kind of agree with something Destiny said later, which is that, yeah, there should be a big social safety net. So I think if you can decouple like your ability to live from your need to work, then yeah, I actually was talking about this the other day with, people in my life, like, yeah, we could abolish the minimum wage as long as everyone has their needs met. At that point, that's fine. And I think honestly, that's probably better than a $15 minimum wage. Because you're not pricing people out of the labor market from their natural wages. Whatever
there might not be a traditional labor market.
Just real quick, because I know that a lot, especially for lefties, I know it's not popular.
I don't really care.
I can tell. I know.
I really don't care.
Wage.
I'll just keep talking
for the audience.
No, I don't give a shit.
Wait. I want to hear this disagreement.
No. Let Gash finish. We can get back to Steve, and he's up to
I don't give a shit because economists are wrong about everything all the time. So
that's not true.
What a base take there.
Pretty much.
It's kind of true.
My favorite thing about lefties is they're one stone's throw away from like fucking anti-vaxxers or like the Jewish conspiracy theorists, but most of them can't see it.
I like how the response is just smears and whatever.
Anti-imperialism, just about economics.
The response is just random broad smears of the left.
Yeah, just random broad smears.
Random broad smears. It's not like there's a historical precedent for lefties wanting to, like be anti-Semitic or anything.
You can keep going. If you want to go smear leftists, you can go do that there.
I don't know where that came from, buddy. I love you
it's
too.
So fucking
Steven.
boring.
Anyway, Gash, keep going.
So anyway, yeah, if we can decouple like the need to work from the ability to live, then yeah, there should probably be no minimum wage. That's like a very different society we live in, obviously. And then yeah, I mean, is it in terms of the politics of it? Yeah, I mean, I agree with Prime that like you would have to, if you were going to pass the $15 minimum wage, which by the way phases in over 4 years, and apparently the only poll I can find a majority of West Virginians support, it's like 63% support this policy. So it's actually a winner for Joe Manchin. So yeah, I mean, you're kind of out of reasons other than his corruption. Do
you think it's irrational, Gash? I mean,
no, it's not rational. He has material
interest. Corrupt. Yeah, he's corrupt, dude. All those poor immigrants he's paying below minimum wage to, dude.
Gosh, I was looking for that poll.
You can say it facetiously, but it's literally true.
If you have me that poll,
absolutely true.
Do you think he's irrational? I mean, I don't. I think it's a naive to assume that he's just irrational. I think there's.
Of course, he's not irrational. He's guarding
his capital interests.
He's pretty solid in his state, and he stands to make money off of not raising the minimum wage. Why
you
would
think
he
it's for personal benefit? That he is not.
It's either that, or he's posturing, or he's like trying to make a power play in politics, and get the Democrats to concede
of West Virginia. Again, if you could send me that poll again, I was looking for it. Okay, Gosh.
But Joe Manchin has an easy out, right? Because people don't vote on this policy per policy way. They're affected by policies, but he can say to his constituents, I represent a guard against attacks on our institutions, and the parliamentarian said this was not allowed under the budget reconciliation process.
Voters give a shit about that. Nobody.
No one
people.
Not a
You're kidding yourself.
Not any constituents anywhere.
People care about moderate. So
moderate. No, hold on. Seriously, are you going to say this? Piece of goods. This is going to be.
I'm gonna. Are you serious, Pisco? Are you fucking serious right now?
Voters cares about the rules.
Sam, I see your hand up. Don't worry, I've got you. You'll be after Strawberry. And then Stardust, I see your hand up as well.
Okay. I just want to say, so moderates perform incredibly well in recent elections. Susan Collins outdid her polls by like 8-9 points.
The polls were rigged, just like they were against Bernie. You're just wrong, dude.
Sure. But what's that to do with the point that I was making?
I think when moderates make these decisions to like stop certain legislation, even though it might be popular, they're not doing it because they're looking at polls myopically. They're looking at the feel of their candidate, who they represent, who they are, and I think they're guarding the notion that they're electable. And so yeah, so I think that there's more to it than just looking myopically at a singular policy poll.
Hold on. Yeah, well, obviously,
we're talking about a singular policy.
But yeah, we can see. Hold on, sorry. I'm going to end up.
Is this going to vote on whether or not Joe Manchin is left wing or not? Like,
yeah. I mean, oh god, it's just so much to respond to here. But I'm gonna have to leave that alone for now. But I can get back to it later, Pete.
I mean, it's one of two things. Either he's acting rationally because he's won in West Virginia and he knows what it takes to win, or he's a corrupt asshole who's just looking for $1 million.
Do you think anything in politics? Do you think money has no consideration in politics? Do you think that maybe Joe Manchin? Joe Manchin receives money from donors who would not like the minimum wage.
If your goal is to maximize the amount of money that you receive in this world, then you should get out of politics. That's because politics isn't like the most lucrative thing.
Hold on,
dude. Do you not know that Manchin is worth literally? Manchin is worth $7 million. That's a super rich guy. What are you talking about?
Hold on, holy shit. That's not what I meant. I meant campaign donations, right? So they're not putting the money directly in his pocket. It's for him to be reelected. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So no, I'm not talking about what you're talking about. But that's nice. And thank you for the next delivery of another straw man. Thank you.
No, so I'll address it. So yes, I think that politicians are motivated by campaign finance reasons, but that I don't understand why you think. Oh, I see. So the train of logic is not that he's personally going to profit, but his campaign. Oh, it's both.
Well, because they probably steal money from the campaign contributions and his.
No, it's nice straw man. Wow, you're so good at it. He's amazing. Straw man on demand. Straw man on demand. Thank you so much. But all right. So look, I got to move down this line because people have been waiting, right? So I had decided the London Strawberry, Sam, Stardust, and Ninetales.
Okay, looking at this minimum wage thing and what Destiny was talking about, like. I can see, the tax phasing the tax credit in as to compensate for the difference in people's situation and that whatnot. But if you just look at what the minimum wage is now, the $7.25 an hour, once you account for taxes, that's about $870. So if you not account for the high school workers, that's saying that anyone working a minimum wage job, they have to live off $870 a month. I think that's ridiculous. Once you even pay for rent and then food, what do you have left for transportation to work, lights in your house, water? I mean, it seems unreasonable. I think more reasonable would be the $15 an hour. So you would give someone $1,800 a month to live, and then if they had 3 kids or they had, under other extenuating circumstances, then you use the tax credit to phase that in to, provide that supplement. But I think the federal government should, require that all businesses across the entire country at least give people the baseline amount to be able to live, and then the government can take over for the people who fall above that.
Thank you. All right. Next, we'll go to Sam, Stardust, the Ninetales.
Yeah, I wanted to go back a little bit on you saying Joe Biden is abandoning his campaign promises. Again, what Pisco said, we have these ideas that why they could vote no on this bill, right? Either maybe they disagree with the price point, or maybe that it shouldn't be with the COVID bill, or maybe that we shouldn't be overruling the parliamentarian. These things are there. This doesn't mean that like Joe Biden has given up on the $15 minimum wage or minimum wage hikes up at all. And I think that's like a ridiculous assumption to make. That just because
if he doesn't fight for his priorities, why would I assume?
What can he do, Prime? What can he do?
Do you think that, like, parliamentarian? That's what the possible. The vice president, as I understand it, can overrule.
He needs Manchin and Cinema. He needs them.
Yeah, he need 50 votes.
Yes, I mean, that's why we're not getting attached. Yes, I get that. But I'm saying that, like, as I understand, the vice president themselves can overrule the parliamentarian. If I'm incorrect in that assumption, someone can correct me.
But he would still need Manchin and Cinema. So it doesn't. It's almost kind of doesn't matter what the parliamentarian says.
Okay, well, but the parliamentarians bought in, so I'm saying that the parliamentarian can be overruled. And again, if this is a priority of yours, right? Why did you give a shit what the parliamentarian says? Exactly what you said. Who the fuck cares? No one gives a shit about process. No one gives a damn about that, right? Like there is no constituency for fucking process, for like the arcane rules of the Senate. Like, oh, the Senate rules were like the Senate.
The problem isn't the process. The problem is that after you do all this weird shit to do the parliamentary you're getting overruled. You're still not gonna have support for the bill. So you're gonna go through all this effort for literally nothing.
No, but it was brought up. Someone brought it up. So
I brought it up because not with the specific procedural issue, but the notion of a candidate who's there to be a bulwark against radical liberalism and Trumpism. That's the image that I think that Manchin has been trying to cultivate, and it's been successful for him in the past election. So I'm not surprised by his
multiple things that you're throwing at me here. So one, I address the Senate parliamentary thing. Manchin is a separate issue that we've been addressing this entire time. But
I was saying that he would use that issue.
Let's let Sam finish his point, please. Sam, finish your point.
Yeah. So I mean, like again, optically, getting this COVID bill passed is like a big deal. So if we keep delaying it, that's going to look even worse on Biden in any way. Like, again, delaying this $2 trillion COVID bill is the worst thing that Biden can do. Okay. So doing anything to get this passed is the most important thing. Adding this $15 minimum wage for another, like a little bit more optics isn't great. I think because you're going to lose so many more optic points or whatever you want to call them on delaying this COVID bill than getting the $15 minimum wage attached to it.
And anyway, he can't do it because he doesn't have the.
That's also true. He can't.
Sure.
All
right. So, but then this is my problem with the progressives as well, right? Because the progressives aren't fighting for this, right? On the other side of this, right? Yes. Well, why don't you don't have the votes for the bill if you don't have this included? That's another option. They're like, hey, the reason why everyone listens to what the fuck Joe Manchin has to say, right? The reason why you could rightfully call him the motherfucking president at this point, because apparently he decides what's happening, right? It's because he's a squeaky wheel. He says that if you don't do as I say, I will withdraw my support.
Wrong. You're wrong. This is not why he's so powerful. The reason why he's so powerful is because you don't have the votes to do what you want to do.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm fucking saying.
It has nothing to do with him being a squeaky wheel or anything.
I literally agree with you. I'm agreeing with what you're saying. If you let me finish what I'm fucking saying, you'll know that, right? So by refusing to vote, by withholding this vote, yes, you don't have enough votes for the bill, right? So on the other side, people who do care about the bill, right, care about attaching this amendment, right? They could also withhold their votes. Like, well, we're not gonna, if this is not gonna be a part of it, then we won't give our votes. So like, let's say, let's ignore this the COVID-19 bill, right? Let's say like, okay, you guys disagree with attaching it here. Okay, let's attach it to the defense appropriations bill, right? It's literally the exact same fucking math is going to happen there, right? You're saying that this COVID bill has to happen right now? Okay, I agree with you, sure. But during the defense appropriation bill, what changes? Absolutely nothing fucking changes, right? So the progressives in the House, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, I guess, and whoever else, right, could also say, no, we're not going to vote for this. Like, we've waited long enough. You've said, Joe Biden, that this is a priority of yours. Fucking show us as a priority. So we won't vote for it unless this amendments attached. Like, that's another way to apply pressure, because then you have to negotiate with them as well, right?
Yeah, no, but I want to be. This is a function of our democracy and the fact that
I know, but they don't like it.
I just want to be like, as a policy matter, I'd sooner get rid of the filibuster. I think it's absurd,
I agree,
and I want to get rid of it. But again, that choice doesn't present itself because we are presented with a world in which we have some conservative Democrats in the Senate. And because they were elected, and because we live in a democracy, and because they're the clincher votes, it's the same reason Anthony Kennedy and all these Supreme Court opinions get to decide everything.
Why did they clincher votes?
Because they're the most in the middle, and but the same thing in the Supreme Court.
No, what does that mean though? But why do you have to only why do you have to only appease the
natural.
The right flank, right? Why do they have to? Why is that the natural thing? Why is it natural?
Why do you have to appease the right side when you're pushing for the most extreme left policy? What do you mean? Of course, you're always going to have to come to the center.
I'm not in general, not just like why is it
that's the nature. So that's the nature of American democracy is they have these natural tendencies that push towards the middle, and then you're feeling that a lot right now.
No, I understand that. So I made that argument the other day.
Right. So there are a lot of things that moderate the Senate especially as a body, right? The House is very reactive. The Senate is much less reactive. The nature of the Senate, because it's the whole state, they have to get consensus there. And so there's a lot of things that moderate the president, right? Because the president needs to look like he's doing things. So you're feeling the pressure of those forces, that pressure pushes to the middle, doesn't push out.
No. But that's because those individual senators aren't withholding the votes as well. So like if they had a similar strategy, right? Because at one point the right flank of the Republican Party was doing literally the exact same thing, withholding their vote, right, and pushing their party to be more extreme, right? We saw this, right? We saw this with the Tea Party. We saw this with the House Freedom Caucus.
Okay,
Right?
And they were stopping the Senate a lot of times.
Huge difference with the Tea Party, though.
But I'm saying that for people, there's an absolute difference. Yeah, true. But like I'm saying that your right flank, right, the extremes that he's talking about that are off the moderated, they also have the ability to withhold their votes, right, just like any other senator. So this is me.
But they fuck over the party and they make the party look really bad.
That's
not even a good reason.
Doing?
But
it's the flow chart.
Do all the time.
Like
when the filibuster, right? The filibuster can't get we can't get rid of that because of Joe Manchin, right?
Well, this is a rationale. I'm going to explain it to you. So Sanders is fine. He's not in trouble at all. Like a lot of these people, the same thing in the House, right? AOC is there's no danger to her seat from a primary, really at all. And so if Bernie Sanders has not gotten a lot of legislation through over the 10-year of his career.
But fine.
It's absolutely true.
This whole reason
he doesn't
face a
penalty for that. There's
a better reason for all of
this. But other actors in this government of ours face the penalty of not doing stuff, and these are seats which are more at risk. And so when you stamp your feet, right, and you don't let legislation be passed because it's not liberal enough or it's not left. Hey, listen, I agree with you on all the policy. I'm sure maybe not all of them, maybe not the co-op shit, but on a lot of it, I'm sure. But think about this. I mean, if they don't do anything, the Democrats look incompetent, and now all these seats that they might have won otherwise, they're not going to win. So they get a lot of pressure.
I'm not saying they don't do anything. I'm saying it's okay. Hold on. So my problem is I'm not letting. There are two people who are. I really want to finish arguing with you two. I love arguing with you two. I don't care that Destiny has a straw man machine in his back room, right? Going overtime anytime he walks into my channel, apparently. But I thank you both for being here. But
you can call it a straw man machine if you want. The actual mature thing that you would do, the actual thing that would be happening, if you wanted to have a real big boy conversation about this, then what you would actually be saying is, what do we need to do to win the seats necessary to pass this piece of legislation, rather than, okay, well, what if we overrule the parliamentary, and then what if we try to bully the razor thin majority we have? Maybe we can go to these states and we can do all of this fucking shit to get this bill attached as a fucking rider to the consultation. Instead of all of this crazy shit, to be like, well, what do we need to do to get like 54 Senate seats? That's the actual big boy conversation.
So you're moving the goalposts once again. And
I'm not moving the goalposts. I'm telling you what, if you want 50 hour minimum wage, that's how you do it.
Because what was the beginning of the conversation? The beginning of this conversation is what Joe Biden can do, right? Now, Joe Biden can't necessarily get other people elected. I was talking about what Joe Biden can do. So stop moving the goalposts.
Joe Biden, we have 50 seats in the Senate. Why the fuck Joe Biden's not going to spend any of his time attacking her own fucking party? Why the fuck would he spend his time attacking her own party?
People do it all the time.
Not when you only have 50 seats. They don't do
that. Their caucus, it doesn't fucking matter.
Because it's a dangerous game right now. So
it is. It's so
dangerous game.
Oh my God! Everyone shut up because we gotta let these ladies in. They've been waiting so long. Stardust, go ahead.
Okay. So let's say we do this thing where you're saying people should withhold their votes. So we get the $15 thing or something on the floor again or something like that. Is that what you were saying?
No,
that he would as a he's saying that the left flank should use the leverage that the right flank is using.
Okay, so what happened with like M4A, like Medicare for all? What happened when we tried to do that?
Nothing. There was no support for that, so nothing. That never
exactly
happened.
Right. Wait. So what happened?
What exactly would have happened? Explain what you're talking about. Explain what you're talking about. I'm asking you to explain about.
Okay. All right. So the Justice Dems tried to withhold the vote to confirm, I think, Pelosi to get M4A on the.
They didn't do that.
Or there was a plan to, or something like that.
No,
right?
that wasn't their plan. That's not.
That was
Twitter people's
friend.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Fine. Whatever. If M4A had gone on the floor, right? Like, you think what would have happened?
That would have been a bad plan. I'm not advocating for that plan.
You're advocating
that's not the same fucking thing.
Wait, guys, please. Sorry. I'm trying to get to trying to connect the dots here.
I'm so sorry.
So the reason why I'm bringing like this up is because we're talking about this $15 minimum wage, right? And you're saying that we need to use our leverage to kind of like force them to do that. I don't see how we would do that. Like how would we do that? And then let's say that
no, finish your point, please. Finish your point, please.
Well, how would you?
Literally, that's what we've been discussing the entire time, though. It's literally what
I understand. It's
saying.
just gotten so muddied, right?
I know, but like I've said it like 10 times already. Like,
well, I'm not quite sure either. I mean, because
that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. But like I literally said it 10 times, so that's fine.
I'm sorry if I'm not understand. I'm not understanding.
That's okay.
This is the problem. We are so preoccupied with political maneuvering.
Ninetales.
Okay, so
Ninetales has been waiting.
So,
are you done? Sorry, no, you're done. Go ahead. Sorry,
not quite. So if like again, I don't know how the Medicare for all would have failed, right? And we've seen the $15.
That's a
minimum wage.
It's a different
right. I understand it's a different plan, right? But using whatever power we have to leverage,
that's not
I don't
the same.
like. Do you see the parallel kind of?
No,
like
I see the parallel you're trying to draw. I'm saying it's not actually parallel. I'm saying that situation in the house, right, was a very bad plan, right? Like that fucking Jimmy Dore, whatever the fuck came up with that, right?
Yeah.
Fucking comedian. And no shit, right? No, I agree.
Yeah.
That's a bad plan. I never advocated for that.
Yeah.
If you've asked me about that, I've never advocated for that.
I understand. I understand.
There are specific political pressure points, right? Specific times where you have maximum pressure. I don't think that time with Nancy Pelosi was the right time to do the Medicare for all, and especially since I think it would have died in the Senate any which way, right? So like that at point in time, it hasn't. We already have this $15 minimum wage that's passed within the Senate, right? That's it's attached to the COVID bill from not the Senate, excuse me, House. In the House, I apologize. Within the House, it's already attached there, right? So that's mission accomplished. And the Senate, right? We aren't going to have it attached. Because of these senators and everything else we've been talking about, right?
Okay.
I think in this moment, at this time, with this bill, right? Or like let's say in the future, right? The defense appropriations bill, right? A different bill that is must pass. I think that would be actually more appropriate. That's the difference here.
Okay. I kind of agree. Maybe at a later date, it could be something that people bring up again. But for the COVID, I just don't. I feel like that we are sacrificing political efficacy, basically.
Okay, great. That's fine. All right, but I hear you. I'm gonna make sure. Did you finish? I want to talk over.
Yeah, I'm finished. Yeah.
Great. Sorry. And I'm sorry for making you wait so long. I'm arguing with my man Pisco here and my straw man Destiny over here. But let's go with Ninetales.
Okay. First of all, for those who aren't aware, she, her pronouns. So yeah, small nitpick. More, I guess, like a PSA for people who kind of are like trying to use the natural wage to prove anything. And then, excuse me, and then I'm just gonna get straight into it. The problem with the natural wage and real wage theory is that it's all based on Malthusian population theory, and the problem is that at best it hardly covers a certain aspect of like socioeconomics. So if you want your analysis to be limited, then it's fine to use it, I guess. So as far as like getting this stuff passed, as far as like what Prime's getting at, I totally think that you can make a bill that will be more appealing to Republicans. And like, I guess I'd be a bit swayed on this, but I don't think that there's, I'd be a bit swayed if you could show me data, but I don't think that there's a lot of politicians who are like, have their entire career invested in not raising the wage of their constituents. So I think a lot of them could be put on the fence once you point out, like in a popular way, that this is something that like their constituents could like, and that that this isn't just like a net negative. And so I think a huge part of this is not fighting something simply because it's not perfect. Like like the whole thing is like we're not going to pass it so long as we have people like Destiny saying, well, it's not perfect, it's not to my standards, so I don't think we should do it at all. Like a lot of things have gotten passed despite like all odds, because, and that's how progressivism works. It, like what you're effectively doing is arguing that we shouldn't be progressive because it's not ideal. It's never been ideal to be progressive. And that's why I think like everything from niche Twitch politics streamers talking about this to people getting on the ground and doing Fight for 15 rallies will make a difference in both like changing the public perception, but also like rallying together politicians to do more for this.
Okay. Let's Lorden. He's been waiting quite patiently. And we'll go to Jola. And we might Dr. Vane, did you have something you want to add as well? Okay, so we'll go to Lorden, then Jola, and I'll decide what to do from there.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just curious, like, what do we think would happen if someone like Sanders was to like withhold his vote? What if he was to be like, nope, this isn't where I want it to be. Like, I am just saying it right now. I'm not going to vote yes on this bill unless it includes these things like $15 minimum wage. Like,
make it the defense appropriations bill, because everyone's disagreeing with the COVID-19 bill. Fine, let's give them that. Make it defense
regardless.
Yeah, no,
regardless.
Like another must-pass bill.
He's helping Republicans if he does that. And
that's
anyone
what
who
I'm saying.
anyone who doesn't say like who doesn't recognize that
thing.
What's
Is
that?
Manchin doing the same thing? If Manchin says, no, hold on, let's say it's attached, right? Let's say,
I mean, yes.
Let's say
yes,
if
Joe Manchin is doing the same thing.
Yeah, let's say it was attached, right? The amendment did get through, right? But then it still needed his vote in the end to pass any which way. Would Manchin not be helping Republicans if he said, well, because we have this included within whatever bill this is, right? I won't be voting for it. Would he not be helping the Republicans?
Well, he's helping himself, the at-risk seat.
He's helping himself.
Who's more likely to lose their seat? Who's more likely to lose their seat? Bernie Sanders or Manchin?
I mean, neither. But that
no, Manchin's at risk.
Oh, well,
what do you mean?
Sorry. Manchin is probably more likely to lose his seat.
Why do you think Manchin voted for the Supreme Court justice? I mean, Gorsuch and the others, right? But it was because he's doing he's not stupid, right? I don't know how to get it through to people's heads. Like these senators.
Not that he's stupid; it's that he's corrupt.
I don't really care if Bernie. I don't really care if Bernie helps the Republicans, because that's all the Democrats do. This isn't a break from the norm, so it's not an argument not to do it.
Well, this is totally different. Think about the world we live in now versus the world we'd live in if the Georgia races had gone to Republicans. This is a different world we're living in that we need to recognize, first of all. That with the fact that we're even having these conversations, that we have a $1.9 trillion package.
Agreed, right? So so now we're getting $1,400 checks, maybe, right, for a smaller pool of people, right? So $2,000 was promised, right, in Georgia, right? Isn't that right, buddy?
That's compromise. That's the story of our democracy.
No. I'm just saying the priority, right? And immediately, I remember watching this happen beat by beat, right? Immediately, Joe Biden didn't fight for it. He didn't put up any struggle. He was like, "Oh, what is that too much? Oh, okay, we're not even gonna put up for a vote. Already, we're dropping up to $1,400." Right?
The problem is just a fundamental misunderstanding. Like this all just comes down to misunderstanding of how the government works. Like that's literally all this conversation is. You guys think that Biden can come out? You think that Biden could just come out with a sword and shield and start fucking slapping heads off? Okay, in Congress, they can't do that. We don't have the power to do it.
I didn't say that. But Prime. I never said that. You keep saying that I'm saying that. I'm not even saying that he's going to succeed. I'm not even saying he's going to succeed.
Then why would we waste capital on
the original fucking question?
Such thing as political capital.
There is no. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Political capital.
Everyone, shut up. Let me finish my point. Then you can argue about whatever the fuck. Let me finish my point. Thank you so much. Great. So I'm not even saying the original argument. Like, what could Biden be doing? I've been trying to answer that question, right? What could Biden be doing, right? Now, what Biden can't do, what he can't do is make some unilateral decision on including the $15 minimum wage, right? That's not what I think it looks like for him to show that it's a priority. I've never said that. You keep implying that I'm saying that, but I've never said that.
I understand, Prime. Yeah.
No more. Thank you. I've never said that, right? I'm saying that he can use the tools available within his the executive branch, right, including in the bully pulpit, yes, right, to try to move things on. I'm just saying I want you to see him try to honor his campaign promises. There are plenty of campaign promises that you can actually fight for and you can completely lose on, right? But I'm looking for the fight. That's literally all my whole point has been, right? But you keep Destiny, you keep straw manning me, saying that I don't understand how the government works. No, I understand how the government works. I'm working very much within those the laws, the separation of powers. I get that. I get all of that, right? So stop. You can stop straw manning me.
Then our goal then is we want Biden
fighting me on some different terrain that I'm not fighting you on.
Biden, there's only so many hours in the day. Biden should fight the fights that he can win, rather than wasting all this time trying to threaten other senators and do all this crazy shit. It's like go work on do all the positive EOs that he's done. Like go look at that progress. Like work on that level. Like
it's also another understanding. It's not just political. Another one is a negotiational. Do you think that they just threw out this minimum wage? When you go into negotiations, do you put in your bottom line first? Who does that? When you go to no?
Okay, back off. Do you immediately back off?
No.
I have a question.
You put forth an option, right? That it's something that you're not going to get, right? Everyone understands this when you're negotiating.
Is that what he did? Was that what he did with the $2,000?
You tell me. I mean,
no, you're implying that he did. I'm asking you. You're making that claim.
So
is that what he did?
Joe Biden is simultaneously negotiating with a lot of different actors, right? He's trying to get Republicans on board. That's what he tried to do when he met with them. They didn't go for it, and they didn't want it. And he took a stand there. Right now, he is sacrificing something.
So why did he reduce the checks?
So what do you mean?
First of all, Biden promised $2,000 before a $600 check had been signed.
And then after as well.
Did he do it after? Because I know he did it a lot before.
January 6th.
Yes.
He did.
Okay,
he solves this with 2K monthly checks.
Well, then the answer is just Biden just hates poor people and everything in America.
This is a negotiation process.
Man, once again, go ahead.
What are you implying? Wait, why doesn't Biden fight for the 15-hour minimum wage? Tell me. I want to know for the people here that think that Biden is choosing not to fight for a 15-hour minimum wage.
Answer first from Pisco.
It's because he owns a bunch of slaves in his basement.
Fucking true.
You're saying. Hold on. All I'm saying, literally all I'm saying, I didn't even attach any intentions to him, right? I'm saying that I'm not seeing him fight for his campaign promises. And all of you, every single one of you, and you're going to try to keep shaking me from this point, but I'm not going to shake, right? So, Destiny, you might be good at doing this with other people. It's not going to fucking work for me, right? So, when we have our fight on the corruption of money in politics, don't worry. You can try this. It's not going to work, right? I'm not shaking from my original point. So, you can try to move the battlefield, right, to somewhere else where it's more fertile terrain for you, but I'm not going to go there. Once again, what I always ask, you ask me, what more can Biden be doing? I'm telling you what more Biden can be doing. Now, you can disagree with that. But I'm telling you that, right? So you can try to get me to fight on some other terrain. It's not going to happen. You're not going to shake me. It's not going to happen.
Who was he compromising with from the 2,000 down to 1,400? Who pushed him there?
So one is the realities of coming into office and realizing that the $600 had been passed, and there's a budgetary constraints
that got passed in December.
So what I'm trying to say is that it is a negotiation process. He put out the $2,000 before this with American people, with Republicans, with the conservative members of his caucus.
All of them were virtually all of them.
I don't know what to say. Like it is not public opinion polls that he has to leverage. He has to leverage his his caucus, other members of his party who are not going to fly for certain things. He was also trying to get Republicans on
who
board.
Didn't want the $2,000 checks?
Republicans.
They didn't vote
and
anyway.
Blue Dog Democrats.
And Blue Dog Democrats.
So Manchin talked him down to 1,400.
No, also
I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't in the room where it happened, but there's a reason for everything. Right?
How come?
Why would he do it? What's your explanation? Why else? Why did he reduce him? I mean, you're by the way, you're framing it as
don't let him cop out and then make him answer that. Why? I want to hear it because this is where the lefties are so much more fun. Why is Biden not fighting for the minimum wage? Please. I want to hear PrimeCayes answer.
The reduction. So why did
or the reduction in checks? Yeah, either one. Why aren't the Democrats? There's a claim made over and over again that they're not fighting for it. They're not fighting for it. I don't know why. So tell us why. Tell us why they're not fighting for it.
They're bad at politics.
Why did they reduce it to 2,000? Oh, so 1,400.
For 1,400.
1,400. I'm not entirely sure.
Why did they? Why
give you
wait?
Let me say something. Okay. And I don't know if this is it, but there is a theory that like, especially liberal Democrats, like the more conservative leaning Democrats, aren't largely in favor of like giving money to people because they think they agree with sort of the Republican conservative idea that like it'll make them lazy and dependent on the government.
So that's blue dog Democrats. So you're talking about
so it's possible. Wait, it's possible that Biden made a political calculation prior to the election and said, "Hey, look, it would be great if we had these 2 seats in Georgia. We could have some great messaging and say $2,000 checks will go out the door as soon as I'm elected." And then that, spurred more Democrats to go to the polls in Georgia, right? Helping him win the state. And once he gets in, he enacts his actual agenda, which is less than that. I can get away with it. Who cares?
But what is he getting in support of it? I mean, if he would, why wouldn't he give 2,000?
I'm not really sure.
He's getting something from it, right? He's getting something which is support from someone,
it's
right?
In line. It may just be in line with his ideals. I don't know.
So I think that we should have just. So I think that we should have just waited until after 2022 to get the $15 minimum wage. I think the problem with pushing it now is the problem that we're currently running into is not being able to pass it. I think if we want to try to get a minimum wage increase right now, we need to settle for $11.
Say it was great optics. Why don't we pass it?
I said if you have the political will to, but we can't.
We can't. We literally can't. What are you talking about?
There's nothing wrong with
the votes are literally there. Or not.
You don't necessarily have to wait till after 2022. You can just not attach it.
That's right. Well, hold on. You didn't let me finish. The rest of what I was going to say is that until 2022, what we need to focus on is more popular measures that we can reasonably get passed so that we can get as many Democrats elected in 2022 so that we then have an actual majority in the Senate.
Unless those Democrats are for them too, and then we can't put any pressure on them either. Great. But yeah, and we're a possibility of also losing there, right? Actually, who knows what happens after that? But if the Republicans retake the Senate, then it's like, oh, okay, I guess we'll wait another 2 years before even trying. Okay. So to my honest members, if you have been enjoying this amazing content with us yelling at each other, that's been really, really fun. Do me a favor, hit that follow button, hit that notification bell to know when I'm going live. I do this all the time. 6 days a week, we have these conversations. 6 days a week, we have people invading my chat to have a discussion. These are all members of my audience who decided to join, right? It's an open walk-on panel. We invite all of you to be involved, right? If you like that, you like the randomness of a panel like this, and the absolute fucking insane. This was still tame. We've had much wilder open panels. Ain't that right, Pisco? No.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
We've had much wilder panels.
We found out we can fuck our fans, right?
And we found out we can fuck our fans. That's the thing that happened here. Yeah,
nice.
If that interests you, like the wildness of my open panels, right? Also my closed panels. Like for instance, tomorrow we're gonna have a primetime Royale, which if you remember the Austin show and remember the Watch Royale, it's similar to that, but it's more political. It's a lot more fun in my opinion. I mean, I'm unbiased in that. But come check that out, right? We're giving you all kinds of programming here. We give you closed panels, open panels. We give you game shows, and we give you a lot of content, right? So don't miss out. Don't miss out right now. Hit that follow button, hit that notification bell if you want to make sure that you never miss any more of this. Of course, we have a YouTube channel, !YouTube, in chat. Let you know how to find it. That's our YouTube channel. That's where we're gonna be posting clips. I will be posting this clip here. And so if you ever miss out, hit sub to our YouTube channel so you can follow along with this. But it's not as exciting as being live. So be here as well. Okay. Really appreciate the strong support from all of you guys. This has been extremely interesting. Steven, one thank you so much for being so kind as to raid my channel before. That's really kind of you. Thank you so much. And secondly, thanks for jumping into the chat. Really appreciate you being here. This was really fun, even though you fucking, oh my God. Oh, you aggravate me. This is really fun. And I'm still looking forward to our one-on-one debate on corruption and politics. I haven't forgotten about that. I just haven't had the chance to study, but I will be challenging you on that. You still up for it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, thank you so much, dude. I really do appreciate you being so kind. I want to shout out to my good friend Pisco right here, Pisco95. He DM'd me saying that he was going to come in and help me out.
I agree with you on the minimum wage, and I was ready to have a discussion with Destiny about. I think the $50 minimum wage is a good idea. I just didn't know there was all this like kind of pseudo conspiratorial talk about Biden and Joe Manchin, which I don't buy into.
Okay, all right, all right. Never mind. Oh my God. Ugh.
Just on a real quick fact check also, because I had to go back and look this up because this is so complicated. The idea that Biden broke some promise on $2,000 checks is just not true. The idea was that instead of $600, we were supposed to get $2,000. They were going to change the payments. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, what?
Look up the ads. They have ads with.
I don't have to look up the ads. I can like
$2,000, and they went.
That's great. AOC literally proposed. She literally proposed an amendment to change the $600 payment to $2,000. That's literally with Rashida Tlaib. That was literally what AOC proposed. That was what Biden was backing. Yes, they were going to change what was already being dispersed. They were going to change that from 600 to 2,000. That's what was being promised, not an additional 2,000. That was never what was on the
whole
table.
thing. I think most people understood it to be $2,000 though. Like most voting people, whether they're wrong or
they
not,
might have.
whatever.
They might have, but even
I don't think
even
we should make
AOC lied
arguments
about
that
that.
voters are stupid and that they were wrong. Like optically bad.
Don't literally say $2,000. Like
AOC was talking about the other bill that passed in December.
AOC was talking about the $600 bill, the amendment that she proposed when she said, I already co-wrote the COVID amendment for $2,000 checks. So let's go. Let's get it ready to go. The amendment that she proposed was to strike the 600 and turn it into 2,000. That's what she was talking about.
Yeah, on the previous bill. And then they're passing another COVID relief bill that they said they would give.
So why do you assume that carries forward?
Yeah, Biden didn't say it was going to be an additional $2,000. Now, I understand optically it looks bad, but AOC was right along there with him. So, I mean,
No, that's not true.
It absolutely is true. That was the amendment that she co-wrote. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wow. Amazing. This is amazing stuff.